Good. Radio, welcome everybody to the August 2025 Hanmer Springs Community Board meeting. Health and safety. In the event of an emergency evacuation, please leave the building by either door, but assemble around the front by Mary Avenue. Apologies probably from Chris. So neither Avril nor I can remember what he said at the last meeting, but we think he's overseas.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, radio.
He's about somewhere on the Australian Bight at the moment.
Right, very good. It'll be me next year. Any announced urgent business?
Yeah, can we have a mover and a seconder for the
accepting that? You move, I'll second it. Okay. Yes. Any urgent business? Conflicts of interest today? Okay, so a little bit of a change of the order of the board sheet. Graham Abbott was talking to us about the helipad request, but he's also going to talk to us about the Queen Mary South information that we need to know at the same time, because he has a meeting to go to it too. So with that, Graham, do you want to come up to the table and tell us all about it?
Which would you prefer? Helipad?
Yeah, it goes for that. That's, yeah.
Right. The helipad. I'm assuming you're all up to speed with the helipad and what's going and all the other bits and pieces. Yeah. So in essence, what the paper deals with here is that the helipad will cost circa $120,000. 40,000 of that will come from a grant from Westpac in terms of for the lighting and the other pieces. We haven't got to having a final QS on it, but from all of the other helipads that have been put in and around the South Island, that's pretty much what they come in at. So when I say we, the Hanmer Springs, sorry, I'm speaking to you as a member of the Hanmer Springs Community Trust. I probably should have backed that truck up first, that I shouldn't have. So yes, I'm not here as an officer of council. I'm here at the moment in this context as a member of the Hanmer Springs Community Trust. Okay. So speak to the devil. Apologies. So I'm in that capacity speaking to this. So we are working through this process at the moment, and our fundraising strategy is to raise the $80,000 that we need to raise. And what we're doing before we go to the community is we are talking to people like yourselves, Lions Club. We'll be talking to Community Trust and other such organisations as well. And then, if you like, the last piece we'll go to the community in terms of a targeted fundraising through people like Hanmer Holiday Homes and those other people, so that we can get the people from, you know, absentee landlords, if you like, or absentee owners from the region. So we've got a strategy that's in place for that. We'll also be very mindful that the thermal pools are doing a fundraiser for Westpac, Night Flight as it's called, and that's where we're working with them, so we don't sort of cut across each other. But that's all happening together. So the request here today is for $30,000 from the community board's coffers, which is we'd like to have the discussion around that and see, first of all, if you'd like to make a pledge to it, and secondly, what value that might be. But if we don't put a value down on the piece of paper, it's not worth coming to the party. So there we go. So happy to take questions, obviously.
Oh, pretty straightforward.
I'll start. Yeah, I think it's a great idea, and I think it's something that the community needs and should be helping to pay for. So I don't have a problem. I know that when you and I were talking the other week, I think there was a figure of 20,000 not mentioned. So you might enlighten us to how that changed. But I do think we've got to find the money somewhere. I'm not sure that Tourism Fund is the right place for it. Maybe part of it. But I mean, it's very much about the locals and the holiday homeowners and the people who are here regularly as well. But I'm sure we should be looking to find the money for it. It's important, in my view. But yeah, no, if you've got any enlightenment on the figure that you arrived at.
Yeah, but we just, we're banking, if you like, in terms of where we think would be the values that we think we can get from the Lions being one that we're talking to, and also we've got some, please don't record this, some conversations around community trust, because you're not supposed to do that, but we're getting some indications as where we think where that other money may fall, right? And it's as simple as that. In terms of, we talk about the tourism fund, we think that the part of the tourism fund is appropriate, given that, you know, it's not just the people from Hanmer Springs that we're airlifting out of here.
Right.
It's tourism people as well, visitors to the town.
I guess that's a discussion we've got to have as to how we are going to get together this money. But it's not just that fund. I think my thought, just on the outside, well, we'll be discussing it, no doubt, but is that we should be looking at tourism fund along with some other funding.
Also aware that this is located in a reserve as well. And we may well have some funding that could be available through a source there. So in principle, I'd support what we're being asked.
Yeah. Same. I totally support it, principle, and yeah, well, we'll just have to talk about later with Jason Beck about the best way to where to put that money. We'll take that money. Yeah. Because I think, like you, Alice, I think, yep, tourism, definitely, you know, a lot of mountain bikers break themselves on the trails and stuff like that. But it's local as well. So, you know, maybe we can extend, I don't know, maybe we'll be able to extend the loan on the medical centre or something like that. It might be an appropriate, yeah, place to get some more money, because it will be inevitably always a part of the medical centre. But, you know, I don't know what Jason Beck will say about that. Just ask. Yeah.
Just a very quick one, Graham, and I don't mind this being minute. Who can use the helipad? And the reason why I ask is where the police need to get up here quickly, would they be able to land there?
But you would have, I believe you've seen a copy of the document, and the document is very quite specific for the document's sake. Okay, because we need to have the interested parties to sign off and to create that memorandum of understanding, right? The reality is, if the police were wanting to land a helicopter, or the Air Force, or for that matter, somebody else who has an urgent need, then the answer is going to be yes, right? It'll be a matter of those coordinating with the emergency services to make sure they're on the right locations and all of that. So yes is the answer to that question.
But it wouldn't extend to the public or any.
Absolutely. No, it'll need to be an emergency situation.
Yeah.
So is there a process set up within this? I didn't see, like, this is the document, this memorandum. Is there a process set up so that people are aware, those who need to, like the emergency services or police?
Not out of that document, but in talking to the people at Westpac, it happens.
Yeah, so as part of the medical services responsibility, we'll put some processes together, as mentioned in there, which will detail who can and can't use it. That should cover off what I think you're asking and how we're going to get access.
Okay. Thank you.
So yes on it. But we were just conscious of getting the document together without 1,000 signatures.
I think the other thing, just so I don't know, you just brought that one up. In the event of the disaster, and that bridge did go, for some reason, or we couldn't get over the bridge, it's another means for getting in emergency supplies if we needed to on that helipad. And that's classed as emergency as far as I'm concerned, so there's another benefit as well. It's not what we're looking for right now, but it also is another benefit.
Yep. Agreed.
Does everybody know where we're planning to pop it? Yeah,
We've seen that.
Okay. So I guess just for, I don't know, sorry, my apologies, there was 2 emergency walk-ins, that's why I was a few minutes late. Literally, I was looking at the door. In terms of, did you mention where we're at the moment, Graham?
Yeah, we've been
Yes. Was it on this stuff? Yeah. So I've got a call with the engineer again on Thursday or Friday this week, and we can hopefully start to move forward with finalising quotes, going out quotes.
Murray?
Yeah, thank you. Just with the chair, can I just ask, when you talk about tourism fund, are we talking about the Hanmer tourism fund, lots of 40 grand in it?
Yeah, from the bungee jump royalties.
Yeah, okay. I just want to be clear as opposed to the tourism board.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, okay.
No, tourism fund,
Yeah,
which already has some
yeah,
clause on it as well.
yeah, that's what I was thinking about. Yeah, thank you.
Right. So obviously we've got to discuss that as a board later, but I think we all agree that you know, it's worthwhile and we'll figure out a way to come up with money. Yeah.
On behalf of the trust, thank you very much.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. You know, it'll mean that we can get on with the process.
Yeah.
Get things moving sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I put some questions to Jason this morning, and he bring into replies to those, and that was looking at ways that we may find the money for him. So, you know, I thought it was best that he involved him to say which fund or funds we could dip into and which we couldn't, and whether there was any other money lying around that we weren't necessarily aware about, we might be able to dip into, or whether HDC might do as well.
I will leave those discussions. to you.
I'm with you on that one, Michael.
So I'm sure you, I don't be cheeky here, I'm sure you'll make a decision quickly, but I would like to progress this as quickly as possible as well, so
Yeah.
the engineers
Hear you.
this week. Yeah.
When are you hoping it for it to be open?
Now we're gonna do it. Well, I'll say it depends on how fast the trades can commit to actually delivering. If they can commit quickly, then assuming there's no issues with the council in terms of what we're planning, then I'd like to aim, we're aiming for the end of the year, beginning of January, so for the busy season, but that is quite aggressive, and it really does depend on the trading period. But let's go stay with the ground, end of January at the very latest, but let's go for,
Let's go before Christmas. So.
Yeah,
Sorry?
that's the plan.
Let's go before Christmas.
Yeah, I'm thinking that.
Yeah,
No, we'll talk about it this afternoon.
All right, look,
thank you.
You can stand up, turn around, sit down again.
Put your other hat.
I'll take that one. Okay. So thank you for that. So we go to the next item. Okay, so I am now speaking to you in my capacity as product development manager for the Hurunu Council, as an officer here. You're all aware, I'll just skip you through this PowerPoint presentation, which we'll make available to you afterwards. So the Queen Mary South Block Development Plan, so just in terms of, sorry, yeah, okay, yeah, thank you, Paul.
let's just make it even. Thanks, guys.
There's a map that I'm going to show you in a couple of moments of this, but this is effectively the land that is, if you draw a line, that blue line at the top of that drawing there is going straight to the south of Soldiers Block, and south of the Nurses Hospital as well, and encompasses all of the rest of the Queen Mary Hospital site south of that line, if you like. So that's the blue outline that we're talking about. Okay, so it was purchased in 2023 by the Hurunu District Council through quite a process with the blessing of Ngāti Kuri and Ngāi Tahu Property. So purchase price of $1.7 million and the valuation of 7.9. So a pretty good deal.
Not a bad deal.
Not a bad deal. Maybe that was some of your deals, Michael, wasn't it? Anything else?
So I won't comment further.
Okay, please. Okay, so that just defines the area a little bit more tightly in terms of the area, and I think we're all very familiar with where we're talking about. So what I'm doing today is just, you'll go through this. So in terms of the existing commitments that are on the land, there's a lease in the Soldiers Block, which talks about the Wharenui area that we have built. So we've started to honour that process already. And just by way of an update, Ngāti Kuri are looking to open the Whananui in the last week of November. So that's going to be fabulous, but there'll be more detail coming out about that very soon. As part of the settlement, there is a first right of refusal for Ngāi Tahu property, because you may or may not remember in some of the previous discussions we've had, is about building a residential, turning the existing domain into a residential area, and that the sale of that funding the development of the hospital site. So should that go ahead, then Ngāi Tahu property would have first right of refusal on being the property developer on that site. So that's contracted as part of getting the price down to $1.7 million. There are buyback clauses for Te Hunanga o Kaikoura in the area, but those would need to be exercised at some certain milestones. It's not for the whole site. It's that if they would be interested in some site, which potentially will play positively into our hands as well. And also there will be an oversight committee formed, which will have input from Te Hunanga o Kaikoura as well. And when we say HDC, that will be a broader range of people that are involved in an oversight committee as well. So those are existing commitments that we are bound to, shall we say, as the progress goes forward. Thank you. Okay, so what we're talking about today is just, we're not sitting here giving you a plan, and it's nowhere near a detailed plan or anything, it's just letting you know of the process that we are going forward, right? So the vision is to, and this may even change, but I always found it useful to have a vision of these things, to transform the historic South Block of Queen Mary Hospital into a vibrant multi-use precinct that honours the cultural heritage, supports community wellbeing, and fosters economic growth. So the key parts of that would be open spaces, interlinking pathways, and access ways that link the reserve to the village. So there's no point in us creating a precinct that just serves itself. It needs to link in with the village. There are cultural, environmental, and spiritual spaces within the area. The spiritual garden reserve, which has been an important part of that site for many years, as a piece that I think not just Ngāti Kuri want to see preserved. I think the community as a whole want to see that preserved. So that was certainly in there. Some high value commercial, retail, hotel and wellness precincts that are within that. And that will help the development of the town itself. But we're mindful of how that all links, or we will be mindful of how that all links with the rest of the town. And how that, and a sports reserve in terms of a playing field and a pavilion to be able to house that. And when it's talked about a sports reserve and playing field, it's not just a rugby field. Right? We should be building an area there that we can hold small to medium sized events and festivals and music events and things like that. We're not talking about bringing Ed Sheeran here. But if we had concerts with 2,000 or 3,000 people and the facilities all set up, and for it all to be able to be managed very quickly and very simply, that makes more sense.
Like the car show, for example.
Sorry?
The car show could use that space.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we need to, we've got to watch them, don't try and build something for everything.
Yeah.
Right, because then it becomes useful for nothing.
Yeah.
But we want to take those things in so that it's easy for promoters and people like that can come in. There's a pavilion there that's able to be used. There are art areas that can be used. If you want to put a marquee up, it can go over here and it works. So we've got to consider all of those things to make the venue as useful as possible. Right.
I think that's one thing that the community did talk about during the consultation that went out for the long-term plan. There was a lot of concern about how much land we would have down there for that domain and about things like the car show, which brings in a huge amount of money to the village every year.
Yep.
Because at the moment they use pretty much that whole area that's open
Yep.
for the in the domain.
Yep.
And didn't look like there was going to be quite so much.
Hmm.
So we really do need to have a good talk about that.
Yep, yeah, no, no, and those are things we need to discuss, and we're not at that stage of yet of having those discussions, but we will be.
I'm just putting a little city note.
Yeah, yeah, totally understand.
Yeah, I think, Graham, as well, that we, you're going to
That's it.
the community in the long-term plan and the councillors have all asked for some sort of draft plan, some sort of master plan to give some idea, because I think that, you know, when you see those words and you imagine the hospital site, it's quite hard
Yeah.
for many people to visualise what goes in there,
totally.
the reality of what's on
Yep.
there.
Yeah, yeah.
So, you know, I think that is really important.
Before it's bit in concrete.
Oh, absolutely, I totally agree, and as you'll see in a couple of slides over, that's exactly what we're saying we're going to be doing, and we're talking at the moment, you know, with organisations that could give us that first look, right, in terms of, because again, you either do one or two things, you either come to a community with a whiteboard and end up with 1,000 things you've got to do, never end up well, or you start with a plan and say, look, let's throw rocks at the plan and we'll find out where we go from there. So that's where we are.
Can I ask a question before we go further? We're not in committee at all at this stage.
Sorry, Michael?
As a community board, we're not in committee. No, this is quite outside.
Yeah.
Right, okay. And that would extend to what we're seeing from Graham today. Is this public information?
Yes, it is.
Right.
Yeah.
It's all live now, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll go to the next slide, please. Okay, so again, that's not saying that's exactly where anything, although spiritual reserve's really close to it. So just those four pillars of you know that we want to create. So yeah, so we'll move on to the next. Okay, so in terms of the other things that we're working through is development of funding options, right? There's quite investment required here, so these are not in any order of priority, they're just as we've seen them. So council-led, either, you know, HDC underwrites everything and then profits from it, so to speak. It's a joint venture with other organisations to share the risk and the return. You know, we could lease or sell the whole thing to developers. You know, we could, we've started some funding conversations with Canal, which is envy, right, in terms of saying, keeping them aware of what we're doing. There's no money in that pocket at the moment, but you know, we're a week closer to the elections, the national elections, and you know it tends to happen with governments at that stage. The purse strings open up, so we need to be ready to get our hands on the purse. So yeah, so we're just working through those avenues now, and there's been no decisions made on those, but we just want to bring you up to date with the areas that we're starting to work through.
Do you know what sum of monies are you looking at?
No, we haven't even gone with some big numbers that you've seen here that we put in long-term plans and other areas, but we haven't gone down to the fullness of that as yet, Michael.
No.
Okay. So in terms of the development steps, the first bit, which is coming what you were saying, Tom, is developing the master plan. So the first step along that is to develop the first up concept drawing, if you like, to start debate and start questioning and to start that process. So that's not going to cost 65,000 for the first up picture, I can tell you that. But we're working at and then getting that master plan together. There's some work that's already started on the demolition in terms of getting some tenders for the buildings, and the Rutherford building, we've started some work on that because that building does need to come down. But as you're aware, in any buildings of those age, they've got all sorts of wonderful things in them, like asbestos and lead and what have you. So we've had some work being done by Paddle Delamore Environmental Consultancy in Christchurch to identify what's in the building and what's not, so that we're able to then manage any demolition. Now that's going to take quite some time because then no doubt, hopefully there won't be, but potentially there'll be we'll need consents and all that. Well, we'll need a consent to knock the building down, but there might be some environmental consents that we need once we understand that fully.
Has the historic places had any involvement or see any opposition to it being demolished?
No,
Right.
no. It was built in the 1940s. It's not of a particular
Right.
unique building, if you like. It's Art Deco,
Yeah.
They have.
maybe it seems to have that.
Same as the others.
They had an MBS of about 9%.
It's only the nurses block, Chisholm and
Yeah.
soldiers that had any kind of listing.
Yeah.
So demolition of the nurses' blocks as well.
Buy one, get one free. Well, we'd probably knock a chimney over at the same time if we're doing that, but.
Yeah.
Knock the chimney over, it could go on with it, no. Anyway, no.
Wait,
Anything else to their question?
That's
down
okay.
completely.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's down to that. So as you can see from that, there's some detailed stuff in terms of earthworks and fields and pavilion and what have you. Now, again, those are big numbers. They haven't been QS'd, so they're just big numbers that we've got in the plans at the moment. So there's a whole lot of work that needs to be done and will be done, but we just wanted to, today was to bring you up to date with where we are with the process as such. So next slide. Okay, so just going through, putting those steps in a bit more of a graphical, if you like. Finalise the master plan with the community. We need to establish that oversight committee, which is ensuring that we're getting buy-in from around different areas. Define the commercial parameters and arrangements. We need to figure out how it's all going to work. And define that funding structure with hopefully a little help from the government. Secure all of that grants and all the other bits and pieces. So those are the phase one in terms of planning and preparation. And then
The oversight committee, roughly, what's your thoughts on who would be involved there or the involvement of that?
we haven't given that too much thought at all, Alice. It was just, what we're trying to say is that we need to make sure we've got expertise on that, right? Because again, it's a committee that would need to have somebody that understands how you build a subdivision, how you build this. So we did some engineering expertise on it as well. So, but we haven't got down to the tin tacks of that, but there'll be community representation on that with the right skills as well. So yeah, but haven't.
That was my question.
Yeah, but haven't nailed that down to an degree, but there will be community representation on it. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep. So then in terms of the phase two, begin construction and site presentation, says what is construction of, just the various elements, if you like, as you go through there. The residential subdivision at the existing sports field, and hotel and commercial precinct to be built as well. And the thing. So those are the big picture steps, if you like, in terms of how we go through it. So that's pretty much where we're at.
So the main reserve will cease to be a reserve in order for it to be sold. So the idea.
Yes, it would need to. Yeah, it would need to be residential.
Very gazetted.
Yeah. And the project timeline, which needs to move a little bit to the right already, is into those phases, if you like, of June to December develop plan and design, with public consultation informing that as well, and then early in the new year, final development plans to be determined. Start the works that are going on, funding options, and then just carrying it through in terms of the commercial arrangements in place, and then the construction begins as well. So that's pretty much the plan. We're slightly behind where we want to be at the moment, but there's an opportunity for us to pick up some of that pace fairly quickly.
Graham, the existing domain will need to change status for this to go
That's what
through.
I'm just thinking.
And that, I believe, is going to be quite a lengthy process. That's the last thing that I heard from Hamish, that he expected that to be quite a lengthy process. if we can't change the domain, the status of the domain to make it a residential subdivision, then that will delay all of this presumably, because the funding of this is dependent on much of the funding from that domain.
That's correct as it stands right now, yeah.
So if it took 2, 3, 4 years to change the status of the domain, that's going to blow this out of the water, isn't it?
Right.
Well, I found that, when you say blow this out of the water,
I mean, it's a bit blow the timelines out of
So the timelines in terms of the removing the domain, the sports fields and building the pavilion, and it would affect that, but it wouldn't affect the rest of it.
Yeah, but this has got construction of the domain and the construction of the new sports pitches.
Yeah, but you can still do the spiritual garden, you can still promote the commercial area, you
Yeah.
can still promote the business. So you can still do all of that. The area that we were talking about, the sports fields, is the area that is subject to a earthquake fault.
Yes.
So it's got some pretty limitations in terms of its use. In terms of revoking the reserve status, my understanding was that we were having a crack at the Mohnau one first to see how that process went, because it's a revoking reserve status. Get some lessons learned from that. This one's slightly different because we're not losing reserve. We may lose a little bit in terms of area, but we're swapping one reserve for another reserve. So, but we'll see how we get on with the Mohnau one first, which is that one is we're trying to revoke the reserve status to enable some residential development for proactive revocation. So
By swapping the reserve, will probably make it more significant, and if the sports part of it is to be a reserve, and it will remain as a sporting field. Is that the idea?
the old field, the new one,
The new one.
yeah. So I would expect that we would invest that as reserve.
Yeah.
That's probably going to be a requirement.
Mhm.
So we're just swapping, yeah, practically like for like. So I think
Okay.
that's, we don't know, but we're a bit more hopeful with the process.
would there still be some reserve area left there where the domain is, for instance, around where the helipad and the medical centre is, or is that still up in the air as to whether that moves or not?
That's up in the air. Yeah.
Okay.
But our helipad that we're investing. Well, not how to move about the medical
Yes, I've seen.
but potentially the helipad as well.
Yes, they've said that it was movable.
Yeah, I think that what we're talking about is, I mean, this is a 10 to 15, 20-year development. This isn't going to happen this year or next year. And certainly it's going to take some time to revoke that reserve status and then think about developing what are the current sports fields into residential. And there's also a leasing there of a camping ground, so there's quite a lot.
Golf and the golf.
Yeah, and the golf club. So there's quite a lot to work through in terms of that. But so that's, I guess that's just part of, it's a big site and there's a whole lot of other things that we can progress. And we probably want to progress some things that make money first.
But that area is vastly different at this stage. What you're swapping out with what is roughly there on the ground down at Queen Mary, so that there will be a difference there. Can I ask what the process is for revoking that? Is it a public consultation process?
I think so. I'm actually not involved. Steve? It's been run by his team. Dan, do you know what the process is for revoking the reserve at Mohnau? Are you able to speak to that?
Well, as I understand it, it depends on the where the reserve status is derived from. So some may trigger consultation and some may not.
So when you say where it's derived from, well, derived from,
How it was set
How
up
it was set up.
initially.
Yeah,
Okay.
how did
So-
council get ownership of that piece of land?
Yeah.
I think there was a submission during that long-term plan discussion from, I think that was from Rosemary Ensor, and talking about that land being gifted originally for a sports reserve. So that, if that is the case, then that would probably kick off a public consultation process.
Possibly. We'd have to look. I don't know if there's any legal basis behind that, but nonetheless, council doesn't like to ride roughshod over these sorts of things anyway. So I think there would certainly be a conversation about how best do we move forward.
Thank you.
There's a few hurdles.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, and the purposes of today is simply let you know that we're starting the hurdle race, Michael.
Yes.
And there will be a number of hurdles along the way. We're well and truly aware of that. But what we wanted to do was just say, look, here's where we are. This is the process. This is what we're starting. There have been some decisions made, but not many. And we just need to we'll keep you updated and involved as we go along.
Yeah, it's so positive to see something finally happening. Really, really pleased to see us getting underway. But yeah, certainly want some discussion. The community aspect on way too.
Well, particularly being in the centre of our town, we need to see that there has to be something more in the future than what it is now.
Well, the whole discussion from the community board right back at the beginning when Queen Mary was going to be put up for sale was that we wanted to integrate whatever happened down there with the rest of the village. And I mean, you're talking about that kind of thing in your, having connections with the village. So that's a start, and we'll just keep on talking about it. And I'm pleased that the community is in some way going to be involved in that oversight.
Yeah. Although I think most importantly here was that the council made the decision to buy what is a very, very significant piece of land in the middle of this wonderful village. And that in its own right is a huge thing, because we are and have the ability to do something. Whereas 2 years ago, that opportunity wasn't in front of us. And now it is, which is a huge addition to the council to take it from.
I think it is, it's amazing, it's great. And it's what was needed though.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So the 1.7 that was paid, to what party does that go to?
Crown.
It goes to the Crown, and not Lido.
No, you've got right, spring.
Because that was, if I may through the chair, it was, council was put under a little bit of pressure, if you like, ahead of the last central government elections, when they wanted to, perhaps dispose of some of these funds to bring them back into their pot. So there was some time constraints. I mean, been in the pipeline for a long time, the view of this council to purchase that land to consider and be in control of our own destiny as far as the parcel of land that we know and respect. And the pressure came on before the central government elections last time around to dispose of that land, and that was where we were fortunate to be in that position to land it correctly. Yeah. And I think the other important thing that I'm hearing from Graham is that he's talking about the concept of what might in that time frame, not the implementation, because as Judith says, we're talking 10, 15, 20 years out, but actually for everybody to understand what the conceptual thinking is of how best to use that parcel of land to integrate well into the community of Hanmer and across the Huronui, I think is the timeframes.
Yeah.
It's very sort of high level, what is the net master plan, and the implementation will come beyond that. So good to be in control.
I think it's good to make it public at this stage too.
Sorry?
It's good that it is actually just not within council itself at this stage. There is some plan.
Absolutely.
Around the pavilion, when you describe it as the pavilion on the new site,
Oh, yes, yes.
I hope that we're looking at something more akin to the sort of main power stadium at Rangiora than just a replacement of our existing pavilion, that we're looking at actually having some indoor sports facilities and being able to bring in sports teams and professional teams in to use this as a base for training and preparation and what have you.
New Zealand Ratepayers Association might agree with you on that one.
Is that what you like? You can afford to pay for it.
That comes down simply to money, right? And it is as simple as that. But if in terms of my head at the moment, right, and just in terms of the concept, it's not stretching to that length at that point in time. But again, I guess I've been looking at this more from and again, this is only stage one, someone's going to put something up to get stage one moving, right? Is saying how do we, like I've seen some really good examples around different parts of this country and offshore in Australia, where they've had a facility that's got all of the infrastructure behind it, right? To manage more about the sporting events and the festivals and the events like that around it, rather than being generic sports stadium, which is kind of where main power stadium's got to. Okay, so if you like in old speak, shall we say, the sound shell type thing, so that you can put a concert up there, and that facility's there, the wiring's there, the electrics are there, and I think from and again, one person's view at the moment, put the stuff there, but that to me as more of value than building a stadium that in this town would be empty for most of the year, right? Whereas I think we've got the ability to make it easy for event organisers and sporting organisations to have more stuff happening here. There's nothing better than some every month happening rather than that. So that's where my head's at the moment, and that's not being informed by anything other than me going and having a look at similar spaces in different parts, in New Zealand or in Australia for that matter, and saying, well, that could work. So that's still up for grabs.
Yeah, I wasn't probably going to raise that yet. I was hoping once we get this oversight committee going and a bit of community input, I was going to raise it, but since it has been raised, I do think that's really important. During the consultation, one of the things that came back from council was that it would be some kind of any new pavilion. They actually came back and said it would be some low-key kind of building, which I thought was, a bit presumptuous.
We're talking about 400,000.
Yeah, well, and that's using the money we've got, and then that's considering that what we're giving up and the value of that land and that domain and the size of the land that we are getting, and putting a pavilion on it with some of our own money. I sort of think there's a bit of discussion to go on there to make sure that we do get something that is community useful. I mean, we've had a lot of requests lately to use the hall for sporting events, and it's not a gym. It's not any good for that. So there is some need for some kind of sports facility, but like you said, there's going to be plenty of time for discussion on that. But I guess that's just putting a hand up there about some of our expectations.
Look, and we'll need to, as I said, we'll need to spend some time discussing those and all the stuff that informs those facilities. So
It's very cool. Looking forward to it all.
Yeah. Good that the race has started.
Ready?
Hope some of us are here to see it happen.
I might not be, but still, we're going to start it.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions?
No.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your time.
So you're going to circulate a copy of that?
Uh,
Or leave one lying around you all? Yes, thanks everyone.
I suppose I've got one question. Based on our thinking of the government at present, can they come down on us in any way in terms of how councils should be operating?
Oh, yes, if we want to set a rate. So, I mean, there's so much speculation about what the government may or may not do, but if they keep rates at 3%. Or 4%, then the council will, and the council's been told to focus on pipes, roads and waste.
Yes.
Then we're going to have to get creative.
Yes.
But how long is this government going to last?
I think we're getting outside what the people this Maybe we'll start with
Bring that up next month.
Yeah. I'll escape.
No, that's great. Thank you very much, Graham, for giving us in the loop.
That's quite
And,
right.
We'll look forward to helping with the helipad and glad to hear about the future.
I'm glad you got something useful to do after they can move forward.
That's why I was just like. You've only got to fill 3 days in there.
Oh,
This will be hard to find.
Okay. So we'll look back everybody to the minutes of the previous meeting. Can everybody feed back to me for it is of from pages 4 and 5.
Is this just for matters of correction?
Yep. 6 and 7. 9 and 10. Okay. No corrections, so matters arising from that. We'll hear about the police thing later from Tom. Any other matters arising? Quite a bit of a conversation going on about the 4 square cherry trees. Thank you for getting to that on Facebook a few hours before I would have, Alice.
Oh,
I think it seems to have settled down now.
you're welcome. I think everyone accepted it. What really surprised me is that there's 2 very scrawny cherry trees taken down outside the front there of the supermarket, and there was one very large tree that looked like it had enough rings to have been there for about 70 odd years.
That nobody said anything about.
Nobody said a word about it. There's a lot more impact than the cherry tree.
Yeah. But that was on private property.
It was.
Yeah.
Just.
Yeah. Okay, so 4 and 5, 6 and 7, 8 and 9, and 10. We're all happy with that. Right, so I'd like to move that they're a true and accurate record of Tom, and seconded by Alice. Fabulous. Okay, so we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is about the State Highway 7A urban entrance enhancement. Dan, you want to talk to us about this?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. I think everybody's very well aware of what this one is. So we've done the work down there to do the lime chip and some plantings, but the plantings were quite juvenile and probably not meeting your expectations. So essentially, Mary's met with a local contractor that can do the plantings throughout, and we've got a price for $2,400, I think. And what we're recommending next year, you've got 208,000 in the long-term plan for the Woodbank Road project. So we're suggesting here that it's debt funded until it can be paid off by that money coming live next year.
I don't understand the 35,000. What are we talking about here? Is that what we've spent already?
35,000 is what we've spent already, isn't it? Yes.
Yep.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So it's just a matter of planting the rest of those blocks with suitable tussocks that are hardy enough to withstand the hammering they're probably going to get, and with a curved line towards the road, which will be more of a natural line. And
So
yeah.
just remind me, are we able to put any kind of chip down between the grass and the road? Where did we get to with that, Dan? Because when you drive along there, it is still a muddy pool of messy water.
I thought it was already some chip down
But they didn't fill the potholes.
But no, but between the grass and
what will be
and
tussocks.
the seal,
yeah.
there is nothing. And I know we talked about it, and I thought we were told that we would be waiting until the tussocks went in, and until the summer came. So all I'm asking for is, and those puddles dry out. So I was just asking, is that still on track? Is that where we're at still?
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I wasn't aware that we made any commitments to put more chip down. One of the, I guess, the issues that we have, if we put more closer to the road, then there's more chance of it migrating onto the road, causing a hazard. Now we've got some commitment from our road and maintenance contract that periodically they'll sweep that back on. So that's one way of addressing it. But the one concern I do have is that if we do put these tussocks in, and we haven't changed the parker or the driver's behaviour, then they're going to continue to do what they're doing. So even if we do put chip down in those areas, it's still going to continue, because it will just be pushed in more into the mud.
And that's my concern. If they're not planted far enough back that there is room to park at the side, then that's exactly what some of them will do. But yeah, the chip that I thought we were talking about was more a grey chip, not that lime chip at all, and packed down so that it wouldn't be coming back out over the road.
Well, the lime chip was what was in the previous report, so that's why lime chip's gone down. If you remember,
so sorry, where we have put the lime chip, yes, but between the grass and the road seal, I thought we were talking about a grey chip.
I don't think so.
Well, I can't imagine why we would put lime chip next to the road seal anyway. So that never made any sense. But okay. Well, that probably answers my question. It's
I think one of the things that we've that when we went and spoke with the homeowners that were impacted by this, one of the key reasons why we put those lime chipped areas in was not necessarily for parking. It was because they were all saying that it was better for them for reversing out of their property.
yeah.
That's right.
And they are using it. They are using it for parking, though there was parking down there when I went and had a look the other day. But all that aside, I mean, that's fine, and it's improved it. And yes, some more tussocks would be great. But is there anything we can do then about the mud and the puddles that are there, because it really hasn't improved anything. It still looks pretty messy. Is there anything you can do? Can you suggest anything for us, Dan?
Right now, Madam Chair, my suggestion would be let's a piecemeal approach maybe, but let's get the plantings done and see where that takes us, because maybe that's going to be enough to change behaviour. And maybe just in some of those areas, that's where we can put some tussocks at the end of that, not necessarily in that area, but there's something we could do there to try and prevent people from driving in that area.
Thank you. So can we leave that on the action sheet to review what that entrance looks like once we get, say, to November, so that we don't just leave that in the lurch, please.
Thank you very much, Dan. Getting the tussocks in, that'll, I think, that'll be a big difference.
Yeah.
And it is quite a statement about, what we want to happen there. So, yeah.
Well, I'll move, Madam Chair, that we carry on with that and the entrance enhancement, and it's debt funded from the roadside construction to the tune of 2,400.
I'll second that.
Go, all in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Okay, thanks very much. Dan. Look forward to that. Moving forward on that one. Okay, so going on to page 16. Sorry. Fee waiver request for the hall. So that's quite straightforward.
Madam Chair, the Halls Group have discussed it. I sent this information on to them and they are supportive of this fee waiver. The only thing that's confusing to me is that the reduction request was for $528 for 2 nights business outside in Springs. And then the report done by Gail says that the cost would have been $352, but it's $146 per event. So I'm sure somebody's got their fee waiver amount mixed up. But regardless of what that fee is, the Halls Group was supportive of waiving that fee. Whatever that
Does say
amount
that
is.
it was quoted prior to the 1st of July, which is probably before the prices went up. It was probably quoted.
I don't know. But I mean, the report is, it's actually gone down. So it's less than what the request asked for. So, but whatever that fee is, the Halls Group were supportive of waiving that fee. So if you like, I'll move that recommendation that we waive that fee.
I'd second that. In favour? Thanks, carried. Right.
Thank you. I just make a comment. I had the privilege of coming up on Friday night to the year's evening function, and I don't know how many kids were there, but looked like about 200. But probably not that many. But honestly, the students from across the district had an absolutely amazing time. They all just, they dressed formally for the occasion. That was for the years 7 and 8. And the staff that were there to support the young people having that, social time was quite significant. And I think the year 9 and 10 was Saturday night. So it's really generous that you support the young people and that sort of, opportunity to socialise and network across the district. The music was way too loud for me, but but the young people had an absolutely amazing time, 7. So I just wanted to
great.
feedback on how the
Would have been
how the young people
good to
had
see.
a great time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're left with a headache.
Yeah, I could hear the conversations actually work.
And the fee waiver request is in line with other waivers we have given is for our youth and our schools groups. So good.
Okay. Right, moving on then, page 17. So we had a meeting of the track network this morning, and pretty much I think Alice has handed around an update for everybody.
I'm going to give that to Michael.
That you're up to. Just a general thing is that
Do you want to talk that through from my?
I will, but generally speaking, I think that where we've got to with the track network group is a more realistic understanding of what the costs are. So that we've come to an agreed budget with the Josie and the maintenance team about the actual costs of materials and labour for annually and signage and general trail maintenance work for running the track network group, which actually, so our budget each year is 72,500. And 60,000 of that is taken up and just looking after what we have, pretty much. So where we've got to is probably, and it's great because now it's been reviewed and agreed upon, which just gives us more of an idea about where we're going. Until such time as there's money left over from at the end of the year from maintenance or whatever, there's only that 12,500 available for any capex. And we do also have to bear in mind that there are weather events and things like that. So a bit of a moratorium on building any new trails in the Hanmer Basin at the moment, but just looking after the ones that we have, which I think that's a sound place to be given our economic situation at the moment.
I do too.
So, no tracks around Mint is available 3 miles worth, whatever. We are going to meet, the working group is going to meet informally next week just to review that hub project, just go over what it was supposed to be for, was it bigger than Ben-Hur or is it still realistic? Because the budget, that the proposed costs have doubled. So we're just going to have a meeting next week and just go over what it's for, where the best place for it to be, and come back to the board about that, because it could possibly be that the original $30,000 is more than enough. So we're also talking. Sorry.
Also take into account its location.
Well, part of talking about the hub and what happens is where its location is. So we need to think very carefully about the whole, everything about the project before we commit to the money.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just time for a review of that project before it goes ahead. We talked about our long-term strategy, which is coming up. Coming up for renewal. So we did have a workshop about 10 years ago with a facilitator to look at what we had and what our goals were as a group. Has been mooted. So at the moment, the boundary for what our group looks at and spends money on is the ridge line around this basin. So, as far as you can see, basically, there is talk about taking it down to the Clarence Valley to link Hanmer Springs with the St. James Cycle Trail, or more importantly, I think one of the first projects that we did in, I think it was 2012, was get a grant from Mainland Foundation to rebuild the old pack track to take people off the road. It's certainly overdue for a makeover. It's gone from 1.5 metres wide to barely 30 centimetres in some places. There's a lot of just age and slumping and, you know, weather events. So, looking at extending that down to the Clarence Valley, but that would take us out of our scope of operations. So that's one thing that needs to be reviewed, but, you know, it just won't hurt to bring all of the governance group, because, you know, the players in that group do change from time to time. And of course, now Rainey is gone. So we're dealing with a different company represented by Matariki, and it's great to have them at the table again. And Naitahu were there, which, you know, they're often not there, and Doc were there and they're often not there. So, you know, everybody expressed an interest in looking at a strategy.
Talking about Doc, though, they are going through a review, and there may be some big changes there as well.
Yeah, another restructure.
Another restructure.
Yeah, pigs again, big pig problem in the heritage forest. So Matariki in the past have done some control hunting there and trapping. They're going to try and liaise with local landowners, because they say what happens as soon as they start hunting or trapping in the forest, the pigs just head out to the adjacent farms for a while. So they're looking to do a coordinated thing. The pigs are actually starting to do rooting in Brook Dawson Reserve, and, you know, alongside a lot of trails and stuff. So probably, you know, don't want to leave them for another 6 months, or we'll have them on the village green. Heritage Forest Trust, they had on their Forest Amble, which is their entrance level walk that takes in the sculpture walk, etc. They had 76,000 people through that, which I believe is still the busiest trail in Canterbury.
Well,
And Doc brought up that, so last year, under pressure from ECAN, they removed the conifers from around the St James homestead, which has left quite an eyesore of big rows of slash and no amenity trees. So they've come up with quite a lot of funding. They have got poplars ready to plant, and we're having a planting day or 2 days in September sometime, date to be set. So we'll be looking for any community involvement, and certainly there will be club involvement. I know, you know, our club's going to bring a digger out for the day to dig the holes and, you know, stuff like that. But we'll be putting it out to our community for people who are interested in out the back, will be part of it. I'm very happy to hear, of course, that the new Macarthur Bridge is in. So that means that the St Anne's cycle trail will be in business again, which should be great for a lot of people. Yeah, so our coming up projects really is connection things, finishing the Hanmer Basin Trail, which will give us a sort of half-day circuit of Hanmer Basin for the wintertime, when, and family friendly for when, you know, it's too cold to go out the back, and looking again at the unformed legal road that goes through. It's the Mount Paul Road that goes through from the back corner of Hanmer Basin over to Waia, as a connection between the Hanmer Springs Track Network and the Heritage Cycle Trail.
talk about it being too cold, is the air conditioning working?
Reason too.
You're right, it is cold.
It is cold, yeah. I'm not sure in all my time here we've really conquered these heaters.
Went up to 35, so no, it's
What was it on?
Minus 35.
God.
On 20, did you put it on 20?
It was around 20, I think. I turned it up when I came in.
Everyone's
I know.
Anyway, I think the gist is that the finance for the TrackNet group is on quite a more rational footing, and you know, we've changed. I changed the format for our track development plan really to make a statement about the projects that are on there are the projects that we have actually got a hope of funding, and everything else is on a different sheet. So things don't, you know, we're not sort of continue bombarded with things that are in the never never. And now we have got a better idea of what it costs to actually maintain our network.
Madam Chair, I'm happy to move that, but just before we do, the question mark points there about installing horse and trail signage and so on, that was clarified this morning, that money was transferred.
Yeah.
So it's not a question mark anymore, the money is there for those.
Yeah.
So
So we had a budget 26 left over from last year. That had some older projects tagged to it. That we were just a little bit worried that money hadn't come through, but it has.
But and that money will be brought across from the previous year, for the jobs that weren't done.
It was on the budget.
The planting that's going to go on around at St James Homestead, is that going to be enough to secure the horse sales? Just don't want to be on the spot.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. I couldn't possibly answer because I don't manage the wholesale, but potentially.
It did sound like that there was a large amount, I can't remember the amount of planting he said he was going to do, but
350,000 right straight up of poplars.
Yeah.
Which will get planted straight away. And there are massive piles of slash at the moment, and the idea was that will rot down and create a bit of shelter for the new plantings. And then there's another lot of money coming through for native plantings once the bit of an ecosystem's been re-established there.
And the poplars are already rooted and of a certain size.
Yeah.
So they should take off pretty quickly, and they're also looking at how they're going to trickle
irrigate it. Yeah. There's already a tank, there's already a windmill. We just need to gravity feed some more water to the windmill because there isn't enough groundwater to keep it going all the time. Hopefully we've saved the wholesale. It's a great event, and I don't think it would have been much for the owners of the wholesale to say, no, that's it, we're going. But hopefully with all the effort that we're going to make, and hopefully, with community involvement, that'll help to keep it there.
I'm happy to move that recommendation anyway. The board approves the proposed plan for the expenditure of the allocated funding. The track network group.
Happy to second that. Yep. All in favour? Thanks. Carried. Fabulous. Radio. Discussions items, page 22. Always surprised.
This is the gift that keeps giving.
Yeah.
The gift that keeps giving.
Dan, you're going to talk to us about disc golf? About disc golf.
Well, actually, I'm not really going to talk to you about disc golf. I'm going to talk to you about the hazards that disc golf introduces.
Yeah.
And obviously, this is I consider this a very serious matter. I've still got the incident in the Balmoral Recreation Reserve with a tree falling on a vehicle with somebody in, and they're probably injured for life as a result of that. And had we have done some kind of safety assessment of those trees beforehand, we probably would have prevented somebody from being in there. Now, I don't think there was a great deal of I think there was some thought, but not a great deal of consideration about how the people in the reserve and the frisbee golfers would interact. And this is now, whilst I do believe the consequence of this is quite rare, in terms of a dog being knocked out and having to go and see the vet, I am concerned somewhat that if that was a small child. And like I say, whilst it was a rare event, I would hate to have, like I say, been a small child and having a very, very different conversation. So this is why we've added it now to this, for you to have a discussion on it. And see how the board feels, given that it was the board that implemented or approved the construction of it in 2020.
I think it got approved with a lot of, you don't know. Yeah,
I think we approved it for Tarndale,
we did.
but there was a bit of,
We did consider what, you're saying there, Dan, that we didn't really think about the consequences of the people who use the park. We did talk about it, and we did talk about Tarndale and using it for Tarndale. So I'm not sure why or how. I don't feel happy about taking the blame, but I can see we need to do something about sorting it out, because you're right, the two don't go together that well. And there will be another time where something perhaps more drastic will happen.
Michael?
Yeah, I remember the discussion at the time, or vaguely I do, that Tarndale was the preferred site, and it's more open, and it's a wee bit further out from the general public, perhaps using the Dawson Park. I think we got talked into it being moved to something that was a bit closer rather than Tarndale.
Also, there was pushback from a couple of residents.
Yeah, actually there was too.
Yeah.
Yep. So health and safety was not considered as it should have been. And for my money now, for what it's worth, is that we just close it down and they'll go somewhere else for their disc golf.
Madam Chair, I'm not sure that I want to see it wasted, given that we spent quite a bit of money on getting those baskets made up.
$3,000, I think.
Well, I think, and a bit more, and also getting them all put in place. It would be kind of nice to actually relocate it, but I mean, we don't have the funding at this stage unless Jason can come up with something for us. But I don't think we should waste it. I think we should like waste the disc golf. People do use it and quite like it, so I'd like to see it moved. But I definitely think it can't stay where it is.
No.
But any pedestrian walking near any sporting event is liable to freak and fluke injuries. I've seen people injured from footballs and from rugby balls purely and simply during a warm-up, and they're freak accidents. Perhaps my own personal opinion is perhaps a few warning signs, perhaps some advice to the disc golfers to be mindful of other park users. But I'm not. I would support it being moved if it was cheap enough and there was a suitable place. Otherwise, I'm quite happy where it is at the moment, with perhaps a few warning signs. As you went to Brooks or Dawson.
Yeah, I do think Tarndale is far more suitable. Like one of those nets is on the other side of the bridge, so they're firing these things.
Scary doors.
Yeah. So that, to me, it's just, it isn't in the right place, and we do need to think about moving it. I did have a walk down there yesterday and have a look at it, and because I know this talks about where the playground is and stuff like that. None of these that I could see are anywhere near where the playground is, or where the toilets are, or where people are sitting having barbecues or picnics. They're all further out than that, but they are near the walking tracks. So, yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think we should be moving them, but that's going to cost us too. And certainly if they are going to stay there, if that's the decision, then definitely needs warning signs.
I'm not sure the signs are going to help that situation either.
No,
People don't read.
Going to be a freak accident somewhere along the time.
Through the chair, health and safety is a very big thing now, and we as a community board needs to be foremost in our thinking in whatever activity we're suggesting might take place where. And my impression is that the Brook Dawson Park has now probably become very popular with people being closer to town. The town, if it should be closed down there in terms of the disc golf, and move it out to Tarndale or some other place. But I just don't think it's safe enough to carry on with what we're doing.
I tend to agree. I mean, we're promoting Brook Dawson, we put in new toilets, we put in new barbecue, you know, it's really a family place. And I don't want to see all that money that we've spent on baskets and things. And, you know, people are using it, as you say. Could we get an idea of, Dan, when you can, of how much it's going to cost us to move it, if we move it?
Yeah, certainly that's something that we can do. If you're looking at the Tarndale, we can drum up some pricing for it. But Madam Chair, I do just want to point out, Alice just made a comment about apportioning blame. This certainly isn't an exercise of that. This is, as Michael's just pointed out, that we somewhat felt a little bit pressured into doing what we were doing, felt a little bit uncomfortable collectively with that. But nonetheless, we find ourselves in a position which we now need to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
So
Then to move that forward, if we make a recommendation requesting that council officers provide us with an estimated cost of moving those baskets, the disc golf to Tarndale, and that in the meantime, should we be taking that down as well, taking them out anyway?
I think so.
That we remove them in the meantime until such time as we can place them somewhere else. I think, you know, there has been an accident, the health and safety is an issue, and we've been warned and we're risking it if we leave them there.
Agreed. And by taking them down, you're showing that we're doing something about it in the meantime. We don't have the full plan in place, but this is what we can do so far.
Yep.
I agree.
So I'll move that. We ask council staff for that estimated cost, and that in the meantime, those baskets are removed from Brook Dawson, and that we look at putting them in Tarndale.
I was thinking that.
okay. All in favour of that?
Is Brook Dawson out? It's not. No.
No, it's one of the combined reserves. So it's a community.
District reserve.
Oh, district reserve, combined district reserve, yeah.
So this is why it's funded by the District Reserve Maintenance Fund.
Yep.
So it's not by ours, it's by the Hurunui districts.
But that through Madam Chair, when the disc golf was put in, it was funded by us.
Yeah.
It's a decision of the community board to put disc golf there.
But to relocate it,
Yeah.
we could potentially get some funding from the District Reserve Maintenance Fund to help us relocate it.
That's the question for Dan.
Dan, is that correct? By your financial considerations?
It's correct in so far as we can give it a consideration. Whether or not we've actually got the funds to do anything, I don't know.
Okay.
But Madam Chair, if I've got a moment, now that you've just made that recommendation, how do you feel is the best way that we communicate this with the community?
Piece on the Pinky and a piece on Facebook, probably, which I'm happy to write.
Yeah.
Could undertake to put it in the next one.
I think we definitely need to go ahead and do it, and the publicity and explaining the health and safety risks.
And possibly a sign down there, because it would be visitors that are using it. So if people have used the disc golf before, turn up down there and it's disappeared, maybe, you know, we could put a little sign down there that says, look, this is what's happened, and pending finding a place to relocate it, being temporarily removed from being accessible.
Okay. Do you need any help from us in terms of the message in Facebook or for the Pinky?
If you wanted to send me, if there's any, technical language that I need to use, apart from that, I think I'm quite capable of doing it.
Well, Madam Chair, I would just reference this report. That's how I'd use words within that. I think it needs to be in layman's terms and relatively straightforward. People will understand why we've done what we've done.
Yeah.
I think that item 10 sort of sums it up. We've actually made it worse for ourselves in terms of it becoming more popular by additional walkways, children's playground, a ferry walk and so forth. Family picnic.
But we knew all those things at the time that it went in, and that's why we had originally talked about Tarndale being in a better position. So, yeah, I can't remember the exact discussion, but I know that we weren't happy with the placement and resourcing.
I think that we thought that more families would be likely to use it, but I've got to say, I didn't think about the health and safety aspect of it at the time. It went on for so long. This golf project went on for so long.
It was going before.
Yeah, it was going to be in 100 other places before it got there. So it's just been one of those situations where we probably just didn't think it right through. So
So Madam Chair, if you put the motion.
I put the motion, I know, and we're in favour and now against. So
Tommy,
Tom,
did you vote?
Abstain.
abstain. Okay. Okay. So carried.
Then, sorry, I just saw you put your hand up, and so I thought you were going to ask. I wasn't sure whether you were.
It was a bit of both, because the vote was going on as I wanted to clarify whose responsibility the debate was.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
We got that.
So Stacey, Alice, Mary, Michael in favour.
Yep.
And Tom abstaining.
Yep.
Then can we please ask that those baskets are removed as sometime in the next month? And the Pinky's only just come out, but I can get it onto Facebook ASAP. Yeah. It's sad, but actually sensible. It could have been a child. Could have been much worse. Rightio, moving on along. So we've had our item on page 25. So we're now onto our financial report on 27. Hello, Jason.
Good day all. Right. So the financial report starts at page 27. It's the final report for the financial year, but I've got a big note there saying, look, we do go through quite a detailed process to complete the annual report, and includes a significant amount of auditing. So there could be some numbers that change, but generally it shouldn't be too far off. But the numbers themselves, what I'll do, Madam Chair, is just share my screen because it's a wee bit easier. Hopefully that's coming up okay. Just go through the amenities account. We started the year just with a shade under $1 million of debt. Our total revenue for the year was just 531,000, just a little bit more than what we had budgeted for. And then our expenditure overall ended up being just on $500,000, down by about 220,000 from what we had budgeted for. So the key variances are, and we've identified it all the way through the year, that our wage allocation throughout the year has been a lot lower than what we had budgeted for. And there's a few key projects there, like the Village Hub. We did have $60,000 budgeted, but none was spent by the end of the year. A couple of projects within the hall, which haven't come to fruition. And then in the Hanmer Springs Reserve, we did have almost 26,000 budgeted for contractors. We only spent 10,000. So at the end of the financial year, the balance of the debt is 967,000 as opposed to almost 1.2 million previously thought of.
We've still got the salary and wages though right at the top though. We're way under what we were providing. 62. I thought it was there's a variation of 147,000 there. Oh, sorry, full budget of
The total budget was 147. We spent 62, and all I can, I have been going through the time that has been allocated to different parts of the organisation. Gardeners in Hanmer Springs have done a lot of work in the track network, as you'll see just further through. So, yeah, look, I don't have an identifiable reason for the difference between what we had budgeted for and what we've ended up spending. I mean, this isn't a bad issue for Hanmer Springs. I've got the complete opposite issue for a couple of other communities. So there might have been just more time applied into Amberley and Cheviot and the places like that rather than Hanmer Springs.
Yeah, and although this is the second successive year that we've had that similar figure of 147 up there. So I would have thought that, and again, spending considerably less than that one year would have picked up from the other in that direction would have been made at an earlier time.
Yeah, and
Some contingency.
Yeah. We could have made an adjustment to the budgets last year. Again, the budgets were predicated on an analysis of the time that was intended to be spent on the various areas, and just a straight comparison between what was actually spent and compared to what was budgeted for.
Madam Chair, though, those two projects, the Village Hub and the Halls project that didn't go ahead, would have increased those salaries and wages. So we wouldn't really want to back them off totally. Am I correct, Jason?
Doesn't come under salaries and wages, does it?
No, but there would have been salaries and wages or consultation fees involved there, surely.
50,000.
Yeah, I mean, they wouldn't have been building the Village Hub, example, would have been a contractor.
Yeah, so there would have been a further cost. I wouldn't want to back that budget off, is all I'm saying. Not too much. Anyway, going back to the Village Hub and the Halls projects, the money for those has been carried forward.
Well, perhaps I've got a separate page for the projects, and that will be something I just want to clarify with you as a board what specific projects do need to be carried forward, but I'll get onto that quite soon. The track network group balance there is just a shade under 50,000 left over at the end of the year. So we started the year with 26,000 in the bank. The community board put 76,500 plus the Hanmer Forest grant, another 5,000, and the actual expenditure that's come out is just a shade under 50,000. So there's been some money saved there that amount will naturally, just because it's a separate account, will just flow through to the next financial year. Top of page 29 is the weather contingency fund, and again we put $10,000 from the amenities rate into this account to build up when we have a major weather bomb, which luckily we haven't this year. So that balance will end the year with just over 40,000. The roadside construction account, we do have a debt here. We did did some key works in previous years and additional works this year, in particular street lighting and the State Highway 7A enhancement work. So the balance there is 132,000 in debt. It was, and as been mentioned before, there was a project in the long-term plan to do Woodbank Road, that enhancement work will be done ahead of that. The two accounts for the medical centre, one being the medical centre itself, just flows through as we had budgeted for. There's a debt of 167,000 there. The doctor's house finished the year with a debt of 145,000. All of that was close to how we had budgeted for it. Our development contribution fund for the Hanmer Springs Township still sits there. The level of DCs that we actually received was a lot less than what we had budgeted for. There are works happening in the township, but they haven't come to a point where the development contributions are paid yet. So that will come through and hopefully offset that cost.
Can I ask a question through the chair?
Yep.
Where 42 has been collected, if you like, against a budget of 84. This is only done so after the sections have been sold, is that right?
No, when the titles are raised, and so on, section 2.
Sorry, a title being raised, that's right.
Yeah.
Is the one there's two major subdivisions going on at the moment. Is one somewhat ahead of the other in this respect?
Well, I couldn't answer that question. Maybe my learned colleague directly behind you from where I'm sitting might be a bit more aware.
Yes. Both are looking like sandpits at the moment.
Off the top of my head, I don't super through the chair. Certainly we know DCs have been paid on Riverside Springs. I'm not sure about Red Barn. Are they selling any sections? I didn't come that way. They're selling sections.
I think that they've certainly got big hoardings up with sections for sale all through Christchurch.
There may be some DCs on that one that's been paid.
No, there's only one out of Red Barn sold on marked on the side.
No, that was they've got your title issue. They pay DCs.
Yeah, going on those amounts, it looks like one of those big subdivisions has had title issue and the other one hasn't.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. No, it is what it is.
You probably you know. Right, we've got the walkway fund that was come through from previous development contribution funds. Now we've just there was about 12,000 left or 11,000 left, and there's a bit of interest added to that. And I think a couple of road development contributions have been received. It looks like I've hidden that line item, but I've just rename this as a walkway fund. I mean, that development contribution we no longer receive, and we haven't for some time. And there's just funding there to be able to be repurposed for whatever you see fit.
When are we going to transfer that to the Track Network Group?
I believe that was the case. I did get Avril just to check for me. I think there was a desire to keep it as a separate fund, but if that's your wish, it'll be nice and easy to transfer it to the Track Network Group, because it just takes one item off your page.
Yeah.
I believe that is part of the budget for the Track Network Group that we looked at. Yes, I believe so.
It's not.
It's not
part of our existing budget.
But I just know I remember that we'd had that conversation of that being a possibility, but I couldn't remember where we got to with it. So it's up to the board to discuss. I mean, it might be that there's something else more important.
It doesn't have to be.
It doesn't matter, we can leave it there.
We can leave it there?
Yeah,
Okay. I will leave it.
until we've had a chance to have a look at
Yeah.
whether that was.
Okay, and then right after special funds, page 30, we've got the Bridge Preservation Fund that's got a balance of 108,000. We've got the Tourism Fund with almost 41,000. We've got the Domain Upgrade Development Contribution Fund, which has got a balance of almost 200,000. We've got the Pavilion Fund with 27. We've got the Contestable Fund with a balance of 71. And then the Staff House Fund still has a balance of about 30,000 after those key projects were done. I'll just whip through the rest of the financial report and we can talk about the helipad after that. So page 31 is the Contestable Fund. There's a couple of projects that we had allowed some funding for, but even after that, there's still almost 66,000 in the fund at the end of June. Bear in mind that there'll be another 10,000 that would be added from the start of July. So there's unallocated funds right now of about 76,000 that could be utilised for reserve purposes. I've got the breakdown on page 32 of the track network group. And
Jason, just for 1 minute, you first, Michael.
Yeah, I think you're going to go on to talk about the helicopter pad. Is that right?
Well, that's correct. I
see some tying up, in my view, with the funds that are available here, but we'll go further on to that.
And I just have a question about the sensory playground that we've been talking about for a while. We've had diagrams and pictures. That would have come out of this fund, would it not?
No, it was the house staff house fund paid for the centre. Yeah, Rob Dawson.
Oh, yeah.
That came out of the staff
Right,
fund.
that's all installed, is it?
There's a playground there. There's a playground there, small
Sensory
one.
playground.
No, the sensory playground's getting put up.
It's going to be at Chisholm.
At Chisholm, and they are not getting installed until at least September because the ground was too wet to install them.
Ah, okay, right. I just wondered where we were at with that.
But yeah, that's gonna be up here.
Okay.
What do you mean by sensory? There's a swing and a slide and a.
But so that's active.
Like what?
Yeah.
Compared to regular playground?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm just wondering what's deemed as sensory compared to a regular playground.
Things they can touch. Yeah.
Like,
They can touch and feel and hear. Yeah.
Okay, beg your pardon. Okay, sorry, Jason.
No, you're right. Absolutely. The track network group, got a balance of about 50,000 that will flow through to next year and complement the funding that this board puts into it. And then finally, the page 33 is just those projects that we had for year one and the remaining budget. So it was probably just a need to sort of highlight which projects need to be specifically carried forward, and we can include those. I'd imagine the village hub has been sort of on the cards for a while, and that would need specifically to be carried forward. And also, I think there was the intention to carry forward any unspent street lighting monies from as well, just to build that fund up. But I'll be keen to know whether there's any other projects that need to be specifically carried forward.
I can't see anything there that doesn't need to be carried forward. You're still going to need to do like medical centre, doctor's house.
Well, those, from what I gather, those extractor fans and heat pumps have been completed, so they were just completed with lesser money.
Less money.
Yeah, so they are true permanent variances, so they don't necessarily need to be carried forward, but there's always the ability to come back to this committee if there's a additional project that's required.
And the Pines ablution block, that's also been done and is was an underspend.
I believe so. From what I can glean from purely from the financials.
Yeah,
So to carry forward would be the street lighting, Hanmer Avenue, the hall roof paint and the village hub.
That's what I think. I agree with that.
Okay, I've made note of those, and I'll make sure that they, when you see this report again, you'll see, balance brought forward plus an additional whatever budget is for year 2 of the current long-term plan or from the annual plan. So just shows what the total budget will be for that project. Okay. Now, I suppose just reflecting on Graham's presentation before on the helipad and just trying to explore options for funding. I think there's probably in my head there's probably 4 or 5 different options. The contestable fund is an obvious one because it is work to be done on a reserve. We've got a legitimate use of that fund. The tourism fund is another option, but it may be sort of perhaps doesn't quite fit. Provides some services for the tourism industry, but whether there is that fund is sort of earmarked for a different project. As the chair mentioned, there's the ability to extend the medical centre debt or just add it as a project against the medical centre to be funded by the medical centre debt. We do have that debt, I think, coming to a conclusion, certainly within the time of the long-term plan. So that can just be, minorly extended if need be. I did see there was about 30,000 left in the Staff House Fund. Now, I don't know whether all the projects that were earmarked for the Staff House Fund have been completed.
I don't think the domain is listed as a reserve that money can be spent on, but I need to check.
Sure. Yeah. The last one I just identified was we've got the pavilion fund there, which it's got about 27,000 in it. Now that was it was money that was simply transferred from the contestable fund just to put aside to help assist in the potential funding of a new pavilion or a significant upgrade of the pavilion, but because its origins was from the contestable fund, which had to be used on a reserve. It's still if you chose, it would be a justifiable use of that fund. Also, just knowing that we wouldn't have that 27,000 to apply to an upgrade to the pavilion when it comes time. But again, a wee bit like the walkway fund, that's sort of just a line item there that sort of just sits there for quite some time until it needs to be used. But I think I probably agree with Michael that the contestable fund's perhaps the most viable source of funds for the helipad.
Yeah.
Yeah, the reason being is that we've had this accumulation of funds coming every year to us, and we've not actively made much use of it, and it has been building. This is a community project that does need to be addressed and put in place, being the helipad for obvious reasons. With over $70,000 now available, I would suggest that our 30,000 that they're looking for could come from the contestable fund.
Tom, yeah.
Totally agree, yeah.
Stacey,
I agree.
Alice?
Yeah, I agree, so long as there's money there for it, that's fine.
Oh, I agree as well.
Yeah, I'll move in that direction.
I'll second it.
There were a couple of other things that came up too, Jason.
All those in favour?
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Just, I was just making sure there's absolutely no discussion there. So we've moved and seconded that the $30,000 that the community trust are looking for as our contribution to the community's helipad,
Yes.
be taken from the contestable fund. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Jason.
Don't go away.
Well,
There was another thing that popped up here, the relocation of the disc golf.
Yeah.
Where have we got funds that we can put towards that, Jason?
probably repeat what I mentioned before. We've got the contestable fund, maybe the pavilion fund, and maybe not the tourism fund and maybe not the medical centre rate, but they would be the obvious obvious places to fund it from. Otherwise, you fund it directly from your amenities account.
Okay, and that walkway fund you were talking about, just remind me where that was transferred from, please?
It was previously funding we received from a development contribution for walkways, so it probably still needs to be applied to walkways. I think you'd be struggle to justify the use of that for the disc golf.
For the disc golf, yeah, that's okay.
That's not we did Tando, couldn't it be that trust fund?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what you said.
Murray?
Oh, I was just going to say, Jason, can you just, on page 31, on the disc golf program, $8 remaining out of that $1,500 grant, is that something that could be utilised for what the board is seeking at the moment?
Yep. Yeah. No, exactly.
Yeah.
So I agree. So if we started with that and if we needed more money, take it from the staff house fund, because those are the combined reserves that, especially if it gets transferred eventually to Tarndale.
Okay, just in terms of the pavilion fund, I know I have been approached by Andy Ockrell, who does quite a bit of work at the pavilion, and there are some issues there with equipment. The pavilion fund, would that pay for that kind of thing? It's ovens and freezers that aren't working, that kind of thing.
It is a fund. We've deliberately put that into a special fund, so it can be used at entirely the board's discretion. So if you deem it appropriate to do so, it can easily come from that fund.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll wait till we get more information on that, but thank you. Yeah, and then the other thing that came up was something Tom brought up about cameras for the Queen Mary. You raised that. Oh.
Jason, we mentioned a few weeks ago, I think a month ago, about the balance of some of these accounts being in credit and us being hugely in debt elsewhere. Did you get a chance to look at offsetting our debt against the balance of the credit that we have to reduce our debt repayments?
No, I haven't. The short answer is, but it's something that I can, if it makes sense, and it does make sense overall, can retrospectively, put it back to the start of this financial year. I just not have not had time to think outside water reforms and annual reports at this stage. So apologies, but it's a live action point that I'll do some further work on.
Thanks. And just to clarify, what I was saying is that we have a huge amount of debt on one hand, and we have a huge amount of reserves on the other hand. And if we actually offset the reserves against the debt, then our interest payments would be reduced. We would lose interest on those reserves, but it's such a small amount. But it could end up being quite a substantial saving on our interest payments on our overall debt. And it looks as though that could be possible, but then in case it gets time, I'm sure we'll look into it and see whether it is.
Yeah, the analogy is that you've got a large mortgage and then you've got money sitting in a term deposit. And being a loan shark that I am, I'm charging you a lot more for being an overdraft.
Exactly, and I've seen your little games there, Jason.
Or I'll move the acceptance of the accounts.
Or second?
All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thanks very much, Jason. Forward to seeing how you can save money.
Madam Chair, do we have to make a separate thing for the helipad and the funding comes from that contestable fund?
We do.
I think we already did.
Haven't we done that?
We did it.
Madam?
Sorry, I missed something there.
No, we already did that.
Yeah.
You got that? You got it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
moved by Michael and seconded by Mary.
Right. Sorry, I was rushing.
Radio.
You didn't move that one.
No.
So moving on to 3.4, page 34.
Have a quick tea break before Sarah comes in. It's 5.
Oh, yeah, good idea. Quick cup of tea, John?
How much more have we got?
Yeah, quick cup of tea, please.
Into hot.
busy sort of.
Oh, that's good.
So look, I've met everyone before, but for those who may not have, I'm Sarah Wiggler, I'm the General Manager at Pools. Today I've come to talk to you about an event we're planning at the end of November so that you're all aware of it as we start to gear up on our comms and our program, and then a couple other more FYI type things at the end of that's okay, and happy also at the end to take any questions on pools, events, what I'm thinking, where we're going, those sort of things as well, and I'll share with you what I can. So the event I want to talk about today is an event called Night for Flight. This is not the final brand, but we're getting pretty close. So as a pools team, what we wanted to do is heading into that busy Christmas peak season, do something to increase our profile as well as the village's profile in a period where there will be a lot of activity, and we've got some increased competition coming to the particularly Christchurch market in the pool space, whilst also doing something that has some serious good for our community. So we've come up with this concept of a night for flight, and it's to support Westpac Rescue Chopper, which will also include some funds going to the chopper pad that Graham, I believe, was talking to you about earlier this afternoon. So the event is planned for Friday, the 28th of November. We will close the pools at 4:30 and reopen at 5 p.m. for this special event, and will be open from 5 to 10:30 p.m. And for every person that comes through the door, there will be a minimum donation of $10 per person. So membership cards, all the other stuff isn't valid for this night. It is a special night. We're opening from 5 till 10:30, and every single dollar through the door will be donated to Westpac Rescue Chopper. Okay. So at $10 per person, you know, that's a quarter of our normal $40. That's half of a resident rate payout type price. But we're hoping to create quite a carnival party type atmosphere to bring not only the Hanmer Springs community or the Hiranui community, but actually the wider Canterbury community together for quite an exciting fun event, whether that's, you know, a busload from Christchurch coming up for their office Christmas party, or, you know, some workplaces in Rangiora coming up, or, you know, some farmers or some businesses from Cheviot coming over. We're really hoping to get a good crowd at the event, and we're targeting hopefully about 2,000 people through our door on that night. So if we can achieve that, that'll get us pretty close to a $20,000 donation to Westpac Chopper. So what it'll be a soak under the stars. We're going to have some live entertainment. There'll also be auctions and raffles, all to go towards life-saving causes. So just to talk a bit more about that, there'll be a few different elements. The first will be our VIP offering, which we will host in the spa at our complex. So the guests, there'll be up to 150 of those tickets. They will have free reign of our 6 private pools, sauna and spa, and be able to go into the rest of the facility. And they'll get a couple of beverages and some nibbles as part of that package. And we're working to get a couple of sponsors on board. So hopefully the $100 that they will pay for that experience, the whole lot can go between our 2 charities. We'll be doing charity auctions, so we'll be reaching out to businesses across Hanmer Springs, Hiranui and into Canterbury. The aim is 50 auctions, and they might be packed. So we might, for example, get a $100 voucher for a restaurant or bar. We might get a night's accommodation, and we might get a Jeep ride and bundle those up. Or we might have someone in Amberley offer us 10 hours of gardening service, or we might have, you know, a pack of Waipara wines, different things, and we'll put those all online at the start of November, and we'll close those the night before with the aim that we'll make some more money out of that we can split between the helicopter pad and the helicopter. And then on the night, we'll also have raffles that people can buy as they come in. The other thing that we're doing is we're talking, we have started and need to talk to a few more to restaurants and cafes around the village, with the intention of, rather than us trying to do all the food that night, because we will not keep up if we get the 2,000, but also to engage the wider Hanmer Springs restaurant type community when we're hoping to have most of the village at our place for the night. We're going to put 6 food trucks in our lawn area. So that's not a food truck as you think, but the hope is that maybe Powerhouse will have a spot, Gateway Tavern, Hanmer Hospitality will each do something. So one might do a burger, one might do a taco, one might do a salad, and the ticket to play for those groups will be 20% of their revenue donated to the Chopper landing pad, so that we've got a good variety of food available on the night. We're going to have live music, so Marty and his band have volunteered to be our entertainment on the deck. We are reaching out to a number of the school principals next week within the Hiranui district to do a bit of a principals challenge, and we're going to have a tug of war and a few other fun activities just to drive a bit of
cross business and cross different group banter to encourage as many people as we can come for the night. So we've started to talk to a variety of different partners about this. We're pretty excited that everyone we've talked to so far has said they'll come on board and support or help us deliver the event. So Westpac Rescue are very excited about this because they've got a big North Canterbury project ahead of them and see this as a great landing pad. Great Scott supporting us with PR and comms. Enterprise North Canterbury are going to help us with engaging North Canterbury businesses to support the auctions and getting them to bring their staff up for the night. Westpac New Zealand have come on board to help us raise the profile of the event in the Canterbury region, and Ngāti Kuri are supporting us as well and also looking to open the Wharenui at Soldiers Block the next day. And over the coming weeks, we'll be starting to reach out to a wide variety of businesses and organisations across the district and into North Canterbury and Canterbury to come on board and support it. We've started to talk to a lot of the businesses and given a few heads up at different events because one of the objectives in doing this is that if the accommodation providers can go out early, hopefully we can also do, we'll see a lot of people coming to Hanmer for the weekend. It's traditionally a weekend that takes a dip or there's less numbers in the village at the end of that month after the public holiday and then heading into the Christmas period. So hopefully we can create a weekend with a bit more buzz about it with the accommodation providers, encouraging people to come up for the Friday night because the pools is open late, which is a common request, but also to create an experience where you can come and join the party and do something good and then do other activities around the village and the region across the Saturday and Sunday. So still in planning phase. We'll officially launch the first week of September, but that is one of the projects we're working on at the moment. Any questions on?
Well, fabulous.
Good idea.
This is great. Yeah. Look, we're excited about it, and hopefully if we can achieve what we're doing, it should be really good for not only the pools, but all the businesses and the village and wider district as well. Well, that was easy. Two other little bits and pieces. So one of the things that we would like for the community board to consider looking at our customer behaviour is potentially putting a 2-hour free parking limit on these Amuri Ave West and that side of the road closer to us before people then have to pay. What we're seeing, particularly at weekends, is more and more vehicles turning up with chili bins, arriving at 9 o'clock, parking there until 5 o'clock and being there all day, only coming to the pools and not going anywhere else in the village. We have a free car park at that far end of the street. Those people who don't want to pay can go down there and still very close and easy walk to the pools and a much shorter distance than a lot of other tourism activities. But what we'd like to see in the immediate vicinity of us is either they want that prime park, they pay a small premium for it, or we're turning those over more frequently because people are going to other attractions, bushwalks, cafes and different things so that we're not losing that prime parking in and around the pools to people who are primarily day trippers coming all day and not investing anywhere else in the village. So we wanted to float that idea with the community board and see what you think about it, but we do see it as an opportunity to deliver better outcomes for the wider village if we can turn those car parks over more frequently, or alternatively, people pay a premium that can be reinvested into the community. So, yeah.
How will it work in terms of them making or being allowed to park there? Do you have a meter or?
So you would go with a car park plate metered type product.
Right.
So we have talked about this, haven't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the past.
Lots of resistance because people don't really want to pay, but I actually would support it. I think
It's in front of the main
really good
attraction.
idea.
Look what they did in Kaikoura with their main one by the beach. They've turned that into a metered one, but there's free ones down the road. You can walk up to there, but it keeps that car park turning over, which is the same. And it's there.
Yeah, right, Kaikoura has that.
Yeah. It was after the earthquakes they had to make the decision and did that. And I don't oppose it. It makes sense. It's the central one.
Good idea.
A way that we can make some more money to be able to do other projects, as you say.
Some of our road reserve improvements and things.
Then would we have to
like.
get a parking meter, or is that who, if we did say, yes, we want to get parking meters in, and we have to work out how to pay for them, then who is in charge of actually, do we get Fletch? He's the one who's currently, Hanmer Solutions, currently doing the thing. Is that?
We talked about this in relation to our traffic plan, overall traffic plan for Hanmer Springs. And that, you know, how to finance that, how to finance, you know, better traffic flows through the village. So I guess there would be a contractor. The money's obviously going to go to the council, so. What do you think?
You need to look into it.
Yeah, we need to look into
Just as a cost of having
Yeah.
someone,
Doing
come along and,
We have to clear the meters and,
there's a cost to, putting it in, and then you either have someone going along checking. Or it's number plate recognition, I'm not quite sure how that would work.
I just want to find out from like Kaikoura and stuff like that, how they manage. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's several different ways that it can be done, and we can formally write to the community board asking you to consider it if you'd like, but we just wanted to put it back on your radar because we see value not for us, but actually for the wider village and turning those over at a greater pace.
Was it being your Paul's idea, then perhaps you could come up with the options and we could have a look at them.
Sarah hasn't got much time.
No.
So you're talking about having paid parking everywhere where the red line is?
Effectively, I think out this side, because we've already got some timed parking in front of the block of shops and down towards Fire and Ice and some of the other restaurants, the time restrictions there work, but it's the other side of the same street. There's no restrictions on that side, and I think again just turning them over would be worthwhile considering.
I think at the time, Alice, some of the people who lived up like Cheltenham Street said something about, oh, we'll have people parking all over our lawns.
Yeah.
You remember that?
I mean, that happens anyway.
Yeah.
Unless you put rocks out along your road verge. Yeah. Also, as some people do. Yeah. But I agree with it. They've got another car park down there, although that is getting used more and more over the busy time.
Triangle, yeah.
The Triangle Park has been well
be used more too.
But like you said, a lot of the time they are going somewhere else. They're not just being at the pools, but they leave their car there and then walk off, and other people can't get in there. So I think it's not a bad idea.
Yep, I think it's something we definitely need to look into. Which, you know, I probably didn't feel like that a couple of years ago, but I do now. Especially, you know, that we've got the Triangle car park and it's not used enough. You know, people have got a real mentality, haven't they, in the country? If they can't park outside, they're not stopping. And you know, no park outside the force. Oh well, I'll go to Emberley.
Damn.
And the next one is in a similar vein, but it's actually a piece of feedback we got from the Alpine Winter Festival customer survey, and that was around the speed limits coming into town. And so one of the things that we will again write to you, and I've got the Business Association talking about tonight, is the 70 to 50 speed limit. There was feedback that there was cars going incredibly fast in front of the mini golf down at that corner, but when you've got the animal park, the mini golf, a daycare facility, a cafe, restaurant, and several motels, plus the residential development, and the way people hoof into that corner, I can understand where the parents that made the noise are coming from, that is a reasonably dangerous corner coming into the village. So we should pass on feedback, which I am now doing around, could we move the 70k to the other side of the animal park and somewhere in the middle of that paddock.
Yeah.
Don't see a problem there.
But
And again,
if we're looking at speed limits, I think we ought to look at taking the 30 further beyond the mini golf up on Carnival Hill Road. Because when you're coming down the hill, you're coming down at 50, and the 30 is literally by that mini golf.
Yeah.
So that should be taken further up.
Chalet Crescent at least. I lived up there for a while and the people speed down that so fast. Amazed our cat's still alive.
Have a hill close, probably, that gives you enough time to speed, slow down to the 30 by the time you.
That's next speed review, isn't it? That's not us. That's for next time there's a.
No, but to pass that through to council, the direction that Hamish gave me was to bring it to this group in the first instance and get your support and then formally write to council
Transit, yeah.
and transit to request it.
Right.
It'll take us some time to put it into action though, because they only.
So let's get out there with a chainsaw one night and plant it somewhere else. But anyway, I agree. I totally agree.
Some of that's been changing too, though, hasn't it? Like when you can review you and giving local, like councils, the ability to change some of those themselves, has it not?
Yeah, that has, sorry, through the chair, that has, I'm just a bit sketchy to give advice on, to be honest, but there has been some speed reviews that are coming into fruition in July 1 next year, but that's outside schools or adjacent to schools. And I think the speed restrictions, there needs to be some threshold and criteria that needs to be met to either reduce the speed or, mostly to reduce the speed limits inside a specific zone. So, but I'm probably not the best person to advise on that, whether Dan's still listening.
Look, certainly, especially with the animal park and, and the cafe and
Mini golf.
tree bears.
Yeah. The other side there is that subdivision. There's no proposal for any residential down in that corner of that.
The Woodbank Road corner.
No, opposite the animal park.
Not at the moment.
No,
No, there's not.
that would help.
You'd be pushing to get that one through because there isn't residential in that area. It's just.
That's what I'm saying.
Its own residential one.
Yeah, it's still in the.
To actually reduce it to 50.
Before any subdivision goes in. Well, we can ask.
Almost, just through the chair, almost like an Amberley, once the country estate, the exit onto the state highway, the threshold is going to be reduced from 70 to 50 on the south side, so it's not council considered, no, it's not NZTA, it's what Kota has to say. Yes, I understand that.
Because that's the state highway to Freight Close.
Yeah. Yes.
Beyond Freight Close, you can silver up to here. But I mean, see what all Sarah's doing is asking, do you support this? And then will we go up to the council to ask them to review the speed limits in this area for these reasons?
But if we extended that 50k area south to below the animal park, then would we be risking our state highway funding right back to that point as well?
They've done the culverts now, don't worry about it.
They've done what?
They've done the culverts.
Well, we don't know, but I think all Sarah's asking for is, do you support a review of that? And will you write to the council to ask them to look into that?
Yeah, no, I understand all that. I'm only asking what would happen.
Well, we're just speculating. We don't know.
No. I was just asking if you knew.
Yes, no, I don't know.
Thank you.
Okay, we're in support of this.
Do we mention the other areas, not just the one that Sarah's mentioning now, but the one up Conquersville Road? Do we mention that? And in the same letter?
It's up to you.
I think that given the number of people that are in that area, which is the centre of town essentially, it's a bit silly that you can do 50 k's down to the intersection from Uri Ave, and then you suddenly go down to 30. When in fact, the greater part of the population is north of that, the rest of it.
So the Hanmer Springs Community Board would like to ask the council, we would support the idea of moving 30-kilometre zone south of the animal park. And we would also like to support moving the 30-kilometre zone.
Usually south of the animal park.
50k zone, sorry. 50k zone south of the animal park and north of and south of Cavahall Close, 30 k's.
30Ks to up to Cabot Hill Close.
Yeah.
Yeah,
On the north side.
That'll be changed from the 100Ks. Some people come down there in the early morning.
Sorry, through you, was the 30K back to Fraser Close as well? Extending that 30K?
No.
What do you use here?
I have no opinion on that. It's specifically the 50 to 70 that we've been thinking.
I'll just verify what was saying.
Yeah, just the 50 to 70.
The idea of extending 30 km an hour zone north to Cabot Hill Close from the centre of the village.
yeah.
And could we,
Leaning into, can I say though, is then too close to the Chelsea wall, then exit next to wall.
Oh, hang on.
Can't hear
What's the
that.
matter with-
The Santos has split these lives.
Is that done?
There's
That
something,
was
there's
the
something,
chance in the 93rd minute of the game. Opening day, but
It's a team program.
It sounds like a TV
there's something wrong with the sound.
Is it done?
Program.
We can't hear.
Dan, can you speak and then stop?
Hello, can you hear me?
And here now,
And it stopped.
were you listening to us before?
Yes.
Like
Yep.
1 minute ago?
Yep.
Yep, can you say it again?
Well, what I was going to say is, obviously, you already know that the recommendation is via council, but a couple of years ago, council had to revoke their speed management bylaw because that's now controlled by a regional committee which sits with an ECAN. So if whatever speed limits that council wants to change, it gets generally done as a one hit each year, which goes into this committee for review.
So when would be the next time that would happen, please?
Well, we haven't done one yet under this new process, so it could be done probably any time.
Okay.
But I'm not sure. It depends. I'm not familiar with how often they sit or how often they review these things.
So if we just write to you.
Have a think about it.
Yeah.
If you want to put anything else in there.
Okay.
Yeah, can do. But you'd have to. We've got obviously no control, as Judith points out, up on State Highway 7A.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll write a letter supporting this and with a couple of other ideas, and council can take it from there.
So that was the 3 things on my list.
Thank you very much.
Any questions or things you'd like to know about pools or anything else that I might be able to share before I leave to it?
No, keep up the good work.
Maybe Sarah, what you hear, in terms of self.
Yes. So the pools have done a deal with the Queen Mary Trust Board. No, I forgot the name of that. Queen Mary.
That Queen Mary Hospital Charitable Trust, Hanmer Springs.
That.
Queen Mary Hospital Charitable Trust,
Hanmer Springs.
Hanmer Springs. Okay, yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise known as Queen Mary Trust in
Yeah.
our office. So we have come to an agreement with the trust that we will facilitate event hire of Soldiers Block.
Okay.
So we are currently working through variety of materials, photography, and different things to start to launch that. And I hope to be doing that in September, and currently working on 4 different inquiries for event hire, and developing policies in partnership with the trust around things like management of alcohol, funerals, wakes, celebration of life, tangi, different types of events and what is and isn't suitable and how best to use that space. We are also looking at what events can we facilitate or get off the ground and then potentially hand elsewhere to create additional programs into our calendar. So as an example, we're looking at a speaker event on the Friday night before the fete. We're also looking at some wellness weekends with yoga and Pilates and different things in May and August for next year. And then what else we can potentially build into a calendar to use that facility to the community's advantage.
So some communication will be going out on Facebook and the Pinky to that effect.
Yeah.
It's a wee bit complicated because At the moment, the building is still managed by the council, but we're in the process of a lease to the trust. Which seems to be proving to be way more complicated than it needs to be, but we're getting there.
Yeah.
And then.
Well, that's good news.
Is the contract and he's from Thermal Pools as well to manage the one in the market space, so.
Great news.
Yes.
Look forward to the brochure.
Brochure website, all sorts of things, so. Anything else for me? Yes.
See you later. Okay, so we were moving on to page 34, so discussion about the police review. Tom, did you want to leave this, seeing as you've been manual over?
We had, at our last meeting, we had Robert and Tim Shearer in to discuss about the policing situation. And as a result of that, we ended up with the Canterbury proposal, which the community far and wide, and including the council and including Mary Black, have made submissions and representations on behalf of our community. I think I don't think I've seen the community so united in one project for a long time. And I think closing date for submissions is today, and I think it is being overwhelming.
Overwhelming opposing what's predicted.
Overwhelming because of the police are proposing.
Yeah.
Chris Cahill, the Police Association head, described the North Canterbury efforts as being the gold standard in how to deal with these proposals that aren't very popular. And I think that, I don't know the exact number, I haven't been able to find the exact number, but it is definitely hundreds of submissions have been made. And now we will just patiently wait and see what they do.
Tom and I have been to 3 different meetings. We had one here where there was about 100 people. We went to the Murray one where they said there was something like 500 people. And then it was huge. And then 200 to 300 at Amberley.
Well, I'm not actually sure, but someone said that's random.
There was a lot of people there. So, and yeah, definitely people were really upset about it. Here we had some feedback in terms of you know, how it is being a police family, losing some of that support in the district that we would normally get up here from more close at hand. Now it's going to have to come from Rangiora in most cases, which takes it, you know, that much further away. And by the time you get up the Lewis Pass, for instance, you're like more than 2 hours away from Rangiora. But, you know, at the same time, once a call goes in and then the time for somebody to act and get on the road and come up here, you're going to be waiting for ages. And in the meantime, you've got all the first responders like FENS and local medical centre who are going to be responding to this, and that they've got to deal with that trauma for a really long period of time before you get the police turning up.
So the problem is, the common problem is that you no longer have resident police. They're a roving group that could take some time getting to.
Well, we are still going to retain our 2 police here, but the Culverden guys are now going to be funded by NZTA. And I did ask whether they would be doing operational police work as well. And would they be called out to a traffic accident? Would they be doing other operational police work? And Peter Cooper, who's the rural inspector, who sort of heads the rural area, said, yes, of course they will. But I mean, that's not actually that clear, I have to say. So I have asked that question in my submission that I put in. And it's the same problem going up from, at the moment, you've got police based in Culverden, or who can go up the inland road, out the Leader Road, and all those distances are probably just the same as getting up to Hanmer. So we're too remote.
Yeah.
And to take all of that, or take the police away from us and concentrate them in Rangiora, that's basically where we're going to be run from now instead of Amberley. And they've taken those police away from our district, running it from Rangiora. And those people are also going to have to be working for across the Selwyn district and Waimak district as well. So, you know, at night time, you're going to have like a 24/7 hub they're talking about is 1 sergeant and 6 police. And you can imagine working across Selwyn, Waimak and Huranui. They're just spread too thin.
Most of the time they need to as well for safety if it's.
That's right, yeah.
So that's only like 3 vehicles really.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the other changes, that they're not going to send one person out, and they're not going to send our guys, like if they've been on duty all day, they go home, they go to bed for the night, and they are not going to be called out at night, which is probably not a bad safety thing, but that actually means we need more on the ground, not less.
Yeah, the government won't pray with that, I don't think. So what influence can the people have?
I don't know, but they weren't really. Tony Hill did give an indication that they would seriously listen to it. It's not set in concrete, but on the other hand, all this information only came out at the last minute. I don't even know whether they were going to give the public you know, like they've just had a few days to do this. They extended the deadline from the 13th to today, as it is. And it appears that the local police themselves had about the same amount of time. Like very few of them have actually been part of what has led to this.
Yeah.
None in our district actually were part of the working group.
Well, is that all right?
So it's a bigger shock to them as it is to anybody.
But interestingly, if you are a member of the police force whose duties include being on call, you have to live within 30k of the police station that you're based at, so that you can attend the police station on call in a timely manner.
That's all right.
They chopper them in. How long does it take to chopper from Rangiora? Is this what you're asking? Is a question about the helipad?
And I think one of the things that I've heard from the local constabularies is just like people who have days off, they have leave. One guy's left without backup. You know, so, you know, if he can't go into a situation, he's going to be left sitting outside in his car. Well, God knows what happens inside because he can't go in by himself. So, yeah.
Instead of waiting for backup from maybe Culverden or Harden, now we're going to be probably waiting from Rangiora.
Yeah. And community groups that might exist in these various communities, they've got no authority to do anything either, have they?
I mean, things like some of the problems that we've had here, we've had somebody with mental health issues and there's a sort of threat of violence. I know that wasn't reported and that's why I didn't send anybody out that time, but there was a perceived threat of violence for some people. We didn't get that. I mean, in my shops, I had people come in and shoplift, and I have to say, having these guys here on hand helping, and the amount of publicity and the help we've had from them, and the amount of publicity that we've put out through Facebook has definitely reduced the amount of shoplifting. So without that police presence, people come up here and they think, great, off we go. Shopping time. So, you know,
What's the motelli is also the who are greatest at
Yeah.
risk. They're the ones who call out at night because they've got people drug-related, alcohol-related issues.
Yeah.
And if you've only got one police officer, you have to wait. So the motellies have to basically sit there while these people are destroying their property, waiting for police to come.
And that has happened.
Yes, it has.
Because the other point that came up was what happens, like when our guys, they all need their holidays and their loo days and everything, so they're not here all the time anyway, and they can only work so many hours in the day. And so what happens to cover them, for instance, when they are on holiday?
Or someone's sick.
Someone's sick. And Tony Hill, who's heading all this, he said, well, it's always been really hard to get somebody to do all this relieving work. We'll have to find more inventive ways of encouraging people to, do this relief work. And then I thought, well, why haven't they already, if it's such a problem? Because he did say it was. Why haven't they encouraged them or found a different way or, come up with some other way around it? It's because it isn't that easy, and I don't think it'll be any easier under the new system.
So the message is for everybody to put in their submission.
I've done two.
Yeah.
5 o'clock.
Yeah.
1 hour, 10 minutes.
I've done it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think a classic example actually of a little old lady who I see regularly walking my dog. And she didn't know how to do it, didn't know what to do. But she called on my house and said, how do I do it? And I gave her the forms. She went away and wrote it all out and came back and delivered it and said, could you submit that form? And happily, and they're the sort of people that are feeling very nervous. Old people sitting on their own, very nervous about not having the police around in one hand.
Yeah.
Just from a district perspective, I think it's also really important for us to visit police officers remain here in Hanmer Springs to be reduced from 9 police across the Hanmer district to 4. That's a significant loss for the multiplying effect from losing 3 out of Amberley in itself is a huge potential impact on the rest of the district because of the Waikari guys covering for here or someone's covering Cheviot, if you squeeze the sausage, it's gonna blow out on somewhere else, so I think it's a district concern, that we have. The proposal shaves over half of our police presence across one of the largest local authorities in the country. It just doesn't seem right, albeit. Yeah. Anyway.
Do you think the involvement of federated farmers is going to be a big sway towards them actually listening or considering the submissions or CBX Green speaks very well and he put out some very valid points and kept the meeting under very much control. So probably because you've got a big corporation behind you, it's not just little communities having to say it's.
I'm not really sure through the chair. One of the other documents that's been released talks about today, 18th of August, 5 PM is closing submission. They will review those submissions by the 25th of August and looking at the 1st of September. So I feel a wee bit nervous that that's such a tight time.
Yeah, that's in the rush to do that.
That feels a little bit concerning to me, but I would like to have a bit more faith in the system than that. But I don't know. I haven't had any information to give me guidance one way or the other.
Yeah.
It's going to the top. Every knows exactly what's going on.
I think everyone being involved is going to make a difference, surely. Tony Hill did say that they might, depending on the outcome of the submissions, that they might extend their deliberations as well. So who knows? I mean, if they still want to stick to that time frame, it just goes to show the care that they haven't put into listening to what communities are saying.
Yeah.
The other statistics that perhaps we could have made more of in our complaints was that there are actually one police officer for every 290 members of our society in New Zealand. Whereas for Ranui, it is 1 to 1,500. And under the proposals, it becomes 1 to 3,600. So, you know, that's
Wow, that's
horrendous.
scary stats. Paul?
And there is 1% of the police force of New Zealand look after over 50% of New Zealand, rural areas of New Zealand. No, we only get 1% of the police force looking after rural New Zealand, whereas the urban areas get 99%.
Obviously, it's the largest area.
No, this is the whole. 1% of the 1% of the police force look after all the rural areas in this country, which is over 50% of the landmass.
You have put that in your submission, haven't you?
Oh, very good. Yeah. Government statistics.
I'm going to have to go, Paul.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on then. So there's the memorandum of understanding between Hanmer Springs Community Boards and the council and the health centre. They're just, if you've read it, great. If you haven't, you need to read it. Your
46, but that is really what Paul was talking about.
it's really what Paul was talking about. They need to get onto it to get it signed up so they can move forward. So that's just really for our information item. So you can read that anytime. And there's in our correspondence, there is a request for funding the helipad, and then there was a request to light up in Mary Avenue.
Yep.
For dyslexia.
What do they actually want us to do? Nothing. They just encourage this.
Sorry?
What did they actually want us to do with the lighting up? Are we actually supposed to light something up?
Well, it's a district
encourage
review
it.
from start. It's not an military reserve, so
This is a dyslexia one we're talking about.
dyslexia, yeah.
Yeah,
But they're asking us to set up some sort of blue lighting for that area. Because I couldn't work that out either.
yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't quite understand what they're asking for when I read it.
Well, through you, Chair, I think we'd love for the Hirano district to join this movement by lighting up a monument in Equa during Dyslexia Awareness Week.
Oh, the
If like
War Memorial.
we'd also welcome your support in any other visible way, such as flying a flag. So I think what Alice is saying is they're asking council to light up a monument at council's cost. Right, in Equa.
Can light up the hot balls, something like that front in Aqua. I think that sort of already ties in with the colour, and we've taken the snapshot and say we've done it. Yeah. That's already kind of there.
And you've got until 6th of October to get it sorted.
Unless we could light up that bridge, that'd be cool. That bridge in Aqua. Bridge, we can have a look and see if it's.
That would actually.
We can say that we support it if it's feasible for the council to do it.
That's all.
There are lights on that War Memorial, are there? Yeah, so I don't know, got a pair of old blue tights you can chuck over the top.
Yeah, it's a blue little filter that goes over top of the lights as well.
Blue umbrella.
I haven't got a strong feeling about this one.
I think it sounds like a good idea if the council are able to make it happen. It's you know, maybe you just get blue light bulbs. I'm very sure, but if you can get blue light bulbs that fit, then why not support them? So yes, we support it.
Is Dan's doing
I think so. Should be. What was it?
Dan, what would be the process of lighting up a monument in blue for Dyslexia Awareness Week? Because it's a district reserve.
Sorry, can you say that again?
Yeah. Grace. Then what would the process be to light up
The War Memorial.
the War Memorial and then Mary Avenue in blue for Dyslexia Awareness Week if the community board supports it because it's a district reserve?
Oh, I don't, in terms of doing it, I don't, that's fine, but I wonder is there any additional power requirements required?
No, I think there are a couple of light bulbs that light up the memorial. If we just change it to blue light bulbs for the week, if that's possible, if you can get ones that match it.
Yeah, I can check, but I don't think it'll be an issue.
Yeah.
Do you think there'll be any issue as far as the war memorial thing? You know, like will there be any returned soldiers or, you know, do you think there'll be any issue around that or would anybody, I'm just kind of thinking about who might take
Offence
to something like that going on. So it was more of a neutral place that could be lit up in lieu of something easy like the war memorial. I don't know, I'm just wondering. You know, some people.
Like Thomas Hanmer or something.
Yeah.
It is quite nice, you know, when it's quite bright and light up front here. Perhaps it might be better to do here.
Yeah.
And this obviously would tie in with
The library, yeah, we have
The spotlights at the front, isn't there? Yeah, so same sort of thing, we can
look at light bulbs or even covers.
Yeah.
Who controls those light bulbs? You control that.
No, we just make decisions and tell other people what to do.
Well, it won't be a district issue then.
No.
Way up to, I guess you need to talk to your friendly electrician and
Yeah.
ask them if they can.
And I'll have a look at what sort of light thingies they are.
Just the blue type.
And yeah,
It would probably melt them.
well, yeah.
On blue tights.
Oh, a blue umbrella.
Mary suggested it, not me.
Let's get some more blue tights. No, it would. There'll be a filter of some sort. Let's ask Andy. Let's ask Andy if we could.
Yeah.
Lighting specialist.
I'll ask Andy to have a look at it and see whether it's feasible. I'll put that on my to-do list for tomorrow.
And these guys do some good advertising for us, if it does, you know, like, we're good to get some promo, wouldn't it?
Okay. I think that'll be there, I have to do the promo, not them.
Yeah.
I think so.
We'd love for us to join the movement. Also welcome support in any other visible ways, such as flying.
Yeah.
Now we'll get to be dusted or press release.
That would be okay, though. But if we're on the database, you know,
Well, we could actually,
Through the chair, there are some flyers and things if you go into the website.
yeah. So I think probably go to the website and, yeah, if they want to provide a flag, we could put it up on a flag on. Okay. Footpath request for Road.
So, Chair, I have to declare that I live on Rippingale Road, so there is a monument. On the address, but it
Yeah.
is not.
And I live around the corner, so.
Yeah.
I don't think the conflict of interest is enough to, I mean, all of us have an interest in everything to do with all sorts of things in Hanmer, and that's what we're here for, is to make decisions about it. I don't think it's that bad, but I did ask after that email was sent round, Dan, what an estimated cost was, and he came back with I said just a ballpark figure, and he said if you simply want a ballpark rough number, I expect the rates for the properly constructed lime chip path with timber edging to be around 150 to 200 a square metre. If the 300 metres in the CSR is accurate and the path is 1.5 wide, that's between 65 and 90k. I assume it would be a lot cheaper if you forgo the timber edging and make it a trail as such. So, I mean, we're still looking at quite a big amount of money. He didn't say how much that lesser amount would be, but if Dan is still there, he might be able to give us a number off the top of his head. I don't know.
I think that here's the, I mean, I think the purpose of this being in the agenda though is for you to work out whether you want more work, officers to do more work on a more firmer proposal, or you're not interested in exploring it at the moment.
Yeah, I only wanted.
Sorry, Dan, I'm speaking.
I understand that, but I just wanted a ballpark figure for, say, just doing it as a trail without the timber edging, because that will make us or help us decide whether we do actually want to do something there, or give us something to write back to these people about in terms of, whether it's viable to do or not.
My opinion is, I live around the corner from here. There are people on each side of the road. There's hardly any traffic. There's a 5 metre wide berm on each side of the road that's kept mown. So I don't feel a pressing need to have a footpath there. If there's some money left over from, Woodbank subdivision fund or whatever, or, further down the road when we've got the development contributions from the other subdivisions, then for sure. But I don't think it's a pressing issue. I think it's lovely walking along there on grass, actually.
Madam Chair, it's not that I think it's a pressing issue. I agree with you. I don't think it's a pressing issue, but if we're going to be going back to these people to give them an answer, it would be just nice to have a ballpark figure of what that might cost as part of a reason why we're not going to look at it at this point.
Yeah, I agree with that. We do need to have a ballpark figure, and then they need to know that we're looking into it in terms of what it might cost, and we'll come back here.
Yeah. You're right. I don't think they're expecting $65,000 for that. So at least they take into consideration that we're not spending that at the moment.
But it was, the 65 to 95,000 was I understood was for a formed path with edging, and whether we'd be there is a cheaper option and how much that would be as well. So I mean, can Dan explain that, please?
Is there a cheaper option?
Madam Chair, there is, but if you're doing, because of where it is, well, if I'm familiar with the area, it's in the middle of a residential area. And whether or not you'd want one of the trail type footpaths to be going through a residential area that does actually tie into a formed footpath, I'm not sure whether that's the right thing to do. But if you were thinking about future-proofing it, you would certainly construct it in a way that the lime chip could be removed and it could be replaced with concrete or asphalt in the future. Because otherwise you're digging it, you're excavating twice.
So just
so 65, you're saying would be the lowest amount that we would be paying for that then, which is what you said in that email to me.
That's a ballpark figure, yes.
Yeah. So we could go back to them with that then, as a ballpark figure, saying that we've looked at it, a ballpark figure would be a minimum of 65k. And because there is no actual subdivision occurring there at the moment, we don't think it's viable, something along those lines.
correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, you will know. So when Rippingale Road used to stop at the top of the hill,
Yeah.
And then the new subdivision went in and Rickingale came off Arden's Road down the bottom, and then there was this bit in the middle. It used to be Laurie Ray's place, which has now got a street going through the middle of it. Yeah.
There was always a paper road there. I don't think that that's a new road.
Right.
But it just was always farm land.
It was,
I think it is a big walking track now. You know, it's, I think they call it the big loop or the big circle. And it is part of that keep fit circuit. And, you know, there are a lot more people using that as a route now. So there is that 150 metre stretch that doesn't have any lighting and doesn't have any footpath. And there are numerous families that use it with prams. And I think that would be the issue, that if you're walking with a pram, that you want to be off the road completely.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the distance is, but what we were given in the first place was it's about 300 metres. I think that was what they were.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I would think if you went up the west.
It begins again approximately 300 metres down the road near the access to the concrete walkway.
I think the west side might be slightly shorter than the east side.
Yeah, but the footpaths that are already formed
Are on the east side.
But there is a junction there on the cut through where the old animal farm was. There's a cut through there, so there is a footpath junction there. So you could come down to that junction.
And there's likewise, there's a junction at the other end because it goes into the other.
And what would normally trigger a footpath there? The subdivision of those properties? Yeah. So that we can write back and, you know, we've heard them, and that normally a subdivision of those properties would trigger the formation of a formed footpath. In the meantime, we can explore, you know, as it becomes financially viable to put in a lime chip path.
I think that's probably the right answer to it, given that we don't have that. It's not being developed at the moment, is it?
No.
Well, you do have Reese trying to sell 6 or 8 sections on one side.
On the western side it is, but on the eastern side not.
And Candice and Mark are looking to subdivide part of the animal farm at this stage, with a further phase later on when all the trees have gone.
Yeah, on the western side.
Yeah.
But Reese is doing.
Reese is on the eastern side.
So Reese is doing 6 or 8 sections on the eastern side. If Candice and Mark Donaldson do the western side, then there will be subdivision sides.
So then 6 or 8 sections either side of the road there, would that trigger them to have to pay for a footpath?
That's my question too. And surely they have some responsibility to forming that footpath.
Well, I think Judith would have a far better idea than I would.
From what I recall, the percentage that the developer had to pay.
It used to be half and half, but I think it's changed.
Yeah, I mean, it would depend on the size of the sections. I can't answer that on the top of my head. We require a footpath.
In the meantime, we just explain to them the process and say that we'll explore the financial viability of being able to provide some sort of path in the meantime.
Oh, Madam Chair, I mean, we can respond. We just wanted to know what your view was on it.
Well, have you got enough from us to respond now?
Yeah, if you want us to do it, unless you want to do it directly, but yeah, we can do that.
Yeah. No, that would be good.
So we're not saying no, but maybe no at this stage until we know what is happening with the subdivision.
I think that's where we are.
All righty. Well, that brings our afternoon to a close. Thanks again for the advice. And, yeah. Action sheets. I thought I keep forgetting about the action sheets. So, action sheets.
Chair, I can
Yeah.
excuse.
Understand.
We already talked about number one.
Yeah.
That's done.
Yep. Okay, so item 2 was about the new streetlight installation options for Argons Road, which is for, yeah, waiting for development there. So those new streetlights still going, a solar one still going ahead on Argons Road. Dan?
They are, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Highway 7A entrance tidy up project, that's, we've talked about that. 150 year celebrations, Alice.
There's nothing more on that at this stage.
Discuss at some point.
They did open us up,
Say, let's get on with it.
didn't they? They opened us up an account we can start putting money into. Did we decide last one?
The,
Some of our long-term funding's gone into that.
the northern side of Concord Hill lookout. Was looking pretty good last time I went up there. Quite a bit of work being done up. Yeah.
We just paid Cindy as a resolution that you've committed 13,500 from the staff gas fund.
Yeah.
To that, so you just need to bear that in mind when you're looking at the balance in the financial report.
Yes.
If you've committed that, is not that full amount for the scope.
Yeah. Okay, so Pauline is working really hard on her project about preserving the old
Forest.
the buildings.
Prison
Huts.
Yeah, prison huts.
And Pauline, just out of interest, was given a $5,000 main power industry council award as well for that.
The cenotaph upgrade. Tom, any?
No further.
No further action. Forest network. So. And that just marches on, they just keep upgrading and getting rid of the old
Lines and
copper lines. Yeah. Tree removal outside the Foursquare. So that's been done. We need to leave it on there until we've decided what we're going to replace it with, if anything.
I probably need to go and have, or somebody, we need to go and have a chat with John and Annie about, because they did say that they would put something towards anything we do. Yeah, about sort of what they are going to do, so.
I don't come with ideas, I think we need to go back to them with that proposal that we were given last time with the pricing of the seats and all those kind of things, so that they can see what kind of potential things could be done and how they're able to contribute.
Yeah. So item 10, the little road into the Freedom Camping area in the river. So no government funding at the moment available. Thanks. Thanks, Judith. Yeah, you catch your ride back home. Approximately $40,000 if we want to do anything about that. And that we're coming into summer, it's probably not an issue right now, but that's just something to leave on the action sheet, I think.
Which one?
This is the Hanmer River Freedom Camping area.
Oh, I went down and had a look at that yesterday. It is a stinking muddy mess.
Yeah.
It's horrible. I don't know. I think we need to find a way to do something. Even if it's not the whole thing, part of it. And I did have a question if Dan's still there in relation to the road coming into that. I think that is a public road, like it's a marked road on the map, and it's in really bad pothole condition. Does the grader go down that road? This is the road coming off the highway opposite where you turn into the transfer station. On the other side, you go down that side road that goes down to the Hanmer River Reserve, but is really badly potholed.
I suspect it's an unmaintained section of our network. Oh, I'm just opening the maps. I'll have a look.
Okay. It is pretty bad.
Oh, I suspect it is, but what would it take to get it on the maintenance schedule?
Formally added, it will need resolution of council, but if I have a look now and we've got the grader going past, then maybe we can just get them to go and have a tidy up.
Sweet, be great. Thank you.
Okay, moving on along. The hall roof, Alice, what's happened there?
Nothing that I know of. Dan might know better, but I understand that's what we've asked the money to come forward from last year, because what hasn't been done, anything to do with the hall maintenance, including that roof, is coming forward from last year.
Yeah. And Alice, will you look into the hall's the $11,000 maintenance budget with Jason Beck for what that is for? This is item number 12. And that's a hall later thing. And then item 13, we've already talked about today. Item 14, we asked last time about the weed control on Conical Hill, we're on the Clearfell part. I'm not sure if that's what that's referring to.
Yes, the part was forested.
That the Hanmer Springs Community Board requests the Conical Hill Reserve concept plan to be reviewed and consider how recommendations will be reviewed and funded. And part of that was weed control, wasn't it, on that new track that goes across?
Yeah, it was where the pines had been taken out and new planting had been put in.
Yeah.
And
it was the fly ride arriving station.
Yeah, that's right.
So I guess we've just got to wait to see what happens there.
Through the chair, I think there'll be a report in September.
Well, then,
yeah.
Okay. Helipad MOU, we've got that. And then there is the annual review items, if anyone has a question about any of those.
No.
I thought the top of Conical Hill looks great, actually. Haven't started looking up there again now, a little bit more light after 5 p.m. And there's quite a lot happening at council with Mari. Big report from council, which I haven't actually got to reading this one yet. Is there anything we need to know? Council update cover?
Gosh, the June one was way back when we
did
the annual plan and we set the rates, but I mean the rates are due now, so that's the wee while back.
Yeah,
Happy to take any questions either Tom or myself on that.
yeah, and you already talked about the local water done well.
Yeah, so that's July, so we
Yeah.
just submitted our joint water safety delivery plan with a stakeholder.
Yeah.
And stepping through those next procedures really, so that we are set up with the joint CCO as of July 1, 2026. So there's a lot of work to be still done in that space to implement, and I think the rest there is pretty well as written, is there anything else, Tom?
The only question I had, I did read it all. I like reading to see what's happening.
Yeah.
It was on 77 Maskell's Road.
Yeah.
Only because I'm interested in the funding and otherwise of gravel roads. And so it was decided not to go ahead, although you had 654,000 in the budget for it, but you decided not to go ahead because it had to be 50% funded by the affected ratepayers, and they didn't all agree to do that. So, but that 600,000, was that from the general rate?
So can I just go back a wee bit, and Dan's probably more in tune, he's been leading this, but this was a parcel of a portion of, well, initially, if you know Mackles Road, there is a portion of the first part of the road that's sealed, and then the remainder portion is unsealed. So the council has been working with the adjacent landowners for probably about 18 months or so, Dan, just not something a long time anyway, because there were requests to have the remainder of the road sealed. So, so take away the money side of it for the moment, but to do that, it sits outside of council policy to fund that portion of Maskell's Road, and it's been a long, arduous process actually working with the landowners. So that the costing was to actually seal that portion of the road, and we needed to get 75% of the adjacent landowners. So there's 24 rateable units up that road, and council determined that we needed, because it was outside of policy, that we needed 75% of the 24 rateable units to agree. So that paper is saying that the indicative, or the costings that Dan's team had was the 600,000, which would have been out of the general rate, I guess. And but we didn't receive the 75% support by the 25 rateable units. So in essence, that process has council has decided that we've come to the end of that process. Dan continues to work with 3 of the local landowners that are considering some other options there, but we're not progressing with the completion of the seal as requested up the 1.2 kilometre section of Maskell's Road. Have I missed any gaps or responded appropriately, Dan?
It was all correct, apart from it won't come from the general rate. If it had have been put forward, it would have come from the roading rate.
Right, okay, sorry, big pardon, yeah.
Okay, so that's a district roading rate.
Correct. Correct, yeah.
And it was a one-off, it wasn't,
Yeah.
it's not, anyone who lives on an unmade road can't try and do that. That was a specific one-off case.
Why was that case different?
Well, we had to consider it, and so section 80, we had to recognise that there was something special and unique that sat outside the
Policy.
Yeah, so it was the elevation, it's the opportunity for ongoing infill of subdivision on that, and the elevation, the dust, for some of the residents was an issue that had been cited as well. So there was a range of issues that enabled us to use Section 80 of the Act to consider why we would sit outside of a policy, which is a request of a ratepayer that it would be 100% funded by the ratepayers on that road. So that's why we had to consider why that was different to other roads that might equally have the same.
So this was based on dust and possible
elevation, safety. There's a bit of an east in this road, so elevations, safety, dust, potential infill of further residential development up that road. They were the criteria that we were able to consider under Section 80 of the Act. So that's what made it different to every other road, every other unsealed road in the network, to actually the same criteria to be applied. So it was, we've learned a lot through this process, and there's a lot of history around this, but that's where it sits at the moment.
Thank you. I'd like to know in case we wanted, you know.
Well, I think historically, Alice, through the chair, you might remember there was a Woodbank Road itself had an issue long time ago, and that's when council changed its policy to dissuade, I suppose, these sorts of, you know, I can't think of the word of them, you know, these requests being furnished by a number of shingle roads because council actually ended up having to fund that because continuous infill and new people come on and said, actually, I don't want to pay that rate because it was a rated contribution. So it's not without its fish hooks, I guess. But yeah, this has been a process. I think, to be fair, I think the council and Dan's team has worked, put a lot of energy in to try and find a workable solution, or a solution that actually meets the need of the request of the rateable units up Maskell's Road. But as councillors, Tom and I, we actually had to consider that actually what was going to be the impact, because out of the roading budget, it would have meant if that 690 odd was going to be 50-50 funded, inevitably there'll be someone else that wasn't able to get some, you know, 300 and something thousand dollars worth of funding work done because it was being used on a small section of road. Yeah. So, you know, it's not without its difficulties from a government's perspective, actually deciding what is the best outcome for the district, notwithstanding the fact the issues that the residents of Maskell's Road in this case came to us with in their opinion, a valid request. So we had to weigh all that up. But I think Dan's team has done a really good job, but it hasn't always been an easy process to get through.
And it looks like it was
back in the day when you had a dusty road, the council would say, yeah, we'll come and spray our older will on there.
Yeah.
That's what you said.
I know. But like, yeah, I'm just conscious. We have Chatterton Road and Midway Road, so I was just wondering what it was that ticked this one off that is different. So yeah,
not easy.
No, thank you.
I just have one random question which one of you may be able to answer. Yeah, let's close the meeting. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. What happened to the guy with the AI operated helicopter?